Dives on one. Puts it in the fourth row.
Welcome to The Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, no Jason Anderson. Out with being a good dad. Daddy daycare today for Jason. Going to talk a lot of Royals today, a lot of Chiefs today, a smattering of NBA. Adam Teicher of ESPN joins at 11. Daniel Harms of RGR Football joins at 1. We'll play the Alex Smith interview I had with him. We'll play that in the noon. I would have loved seeing Vinny's home run live last night. I love it.
You killed the feed.
Zero technical difficulties to watch ground outs, strikeouts, and pop-ups, and bad base running. Second the Royals do something good, technical difficulties. Even the feed said, no, this is not normal. Wait, the Royals offense is going to do something? We can't let people watch that. We can't let people get hope. We got to show the bad. It can't show the good. Vinny hits a 2-run bomb. The replay was lovely of it. Replay was phenomenal. It wasn't a ball that just got out. That ball was smoked. And I don't know about you, Dylan. I thought Bobby's was gone the batter before. But it looked like the wind changed. Because pregame they were talking about how the wind was blowing out to left. And so when Bobby hit that ball, I go, oh, that ball's gone. That ball's way gone. And then it doesn't even reach the warning track.
There's a couple of them like that. I think I can't remember who else hit one. Maybe it was Michael.
Yeah, I think
someone hit one down in the corner, and it looked like the trajectory of a no-doubter. And then they cut to the outfielder, and he's camped.
And you're just sitting here going, what is happening? The wind must have switched or played a huge factor because early in the show, I was watching the pregame and everything. They were talking about how the wind was actually blowing in from right and going out to left. Looked like that completely shifted gears. Vinny's goes out in right field. Bobby's does not in left. Also, shout out to Ramos in left field for his debacle early on in the game. Lovely to see that. Helping Bobby Witt Jr. turn a single into a double. Ramos also made another ridiculous play that was, when I say ridiculous, I mean bad ridiculous, on a single that dropped in front of him. I think it was Mark Canna hit that one. Royals win 3-1. 27-22 now on the season. Let's see if there are any. They were the night game, so I think my statistic still holds true, but let me just confirm. The Royals are now tied for second in Major League or in the AL with wins with 27. Detroit has 31, Royals 27, Yankees 27, Mariners 27. Now, winning percentage is a little different there. They have the same winning percentage as the Twins, who only have 26 wins. They've played 3 more games than the Guardians. Point still remains, though. They are tied for second in the AL with 27 wins. I keep going back to what Jason talked about heading into this year, saying this year might not be quite as fun, and a lot of that is based on where expectations are. When you go and play the Yankees in the playoffs after beating the Orioles in the playoffs, expectations change and shift. I liken it to Houston, the Texans, this past year in the NFL. I liken it to what I think the Washington Commanders are going to go through this year in the NFL, where you make some offseason moves that I think we all really like. Again, Brady Singer for Jonathan India. India has not done what we thought he was going to do overall, but still, I think the process was there. You bring back the pitching staff that was so phenomenal last year. Yes, some of the outfield bats fell through. Not a lot of options as we went through them in the offseason. So you bolster the bullpen by bringing in Carlos Estevez, and you sit here going, okay, they got better. I like these moves. And while the record is still fine, while they're still producing to an extent record-wise, you are seeing the cracks in the foundation. You're not seeing that drastic step forward that a lot of folks were hoping for. And again, to me, it's like the Houston Texans last year in the NFL when we all thought they had some good offseason moves. They were going to take a step forward, and what happened? Well, their offensive line was abysmal. The Royals' bats are abysmal. I don't know if there's a better comp, in my opinion, than that right there. So when it comes down to it, the Royals are actually, if you would have told us 3 years ago, they'd be second in the AL in wins, we would have signed up in a heartbeat. Issue is expectations change, and we also understand what is transpiring for the Royals to be sitting at 27-22. They are 4.5 games back of Detroit in the AL Central, tied with the Twins, 4.5 games back. I will also point out, I like what Q has done the last 2 games. I don't know how much you've noticed this, Dylan, but to me it feels like he understood he can't let this team go on a slide. He's treating this more or less, I don't want to say like a playoff game. That's still a little different. I think if it was a playoff game, Ursic's probably still throwing after throwing 26 pitches the night before, right? But he's treating this like a very, very important regular season game. I don't think he treated this like one of 162. And the reason I say this is because Lynch had a quick pull. I know he didn't go to Ursic, but how much has Estevez pitched in the past week? Feels like a lot. He still turned to him. He's pinch running Blanco in, what was it, the 7th inning for Mark Canha. Kevin Biggio came in for Jonathan India in the... Oh, come on. Not the 9th. Earlier on in the game. So, I like the way Q has been fairly aggressive the last 2 games. The final game against the Cardinals and the first one against San Fran. Jack Johnson was actually at the game. Excited for him to come back. Whenever he comes back, excited to get his thoughts. I've always wanted to go to San Francisco. Always wanted to go to a Giants game. To the Bay. I want to know if he was close to getting Vinny's bomb. If he saw, who's the guy that steals balls from kids? You know what I'm talking about? The guy that always takes people's home run balls. He just runs and chases them.
Well-placed home run there. And then also, I don't know who you're talking about, but I think I do. He's the YouTube guy who takes it too seriously about getting
way too seriously.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were saying a guy whose shtick was to actually steal the baseball from a child, which is not
allegedly,
cool at all,
of course. But there's been he got kicked out of the Rockies game for basically doing that.
Yep.
I wanted to know if Jack got shoulder, like hockey, right? Just got checked by the dude. Would love to know that. Chris Bubich deals yet again. Now, I'm not glad, but to an extent glad he gave up a legitimate hit because Michael Massey, originally that play at second in the 6th was ruled an error and then changed to a hit. And I thought that, what are we doing here? He slipped because he overran the ball. Rex Hudler was almost besides himself, talking about how that's an error. Slip or not, you overran, you overpursued. You slipped because you overpursued. I'm not trying to take a shot at Michael Massey.
If he doesn't slip, he's literally been positioned to field a ground ball like you teach tape like for second graders.
Yes.
Like basically 2 feet, put your glove down, hand over the glove. Yeah.
So don't overpursue. And so for me, that's an error. And I don't know if
it was at Kaufman, it was an error.
If this was 20 years ago,
if this was at Kaufman,
agreed.
It'd be an error.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But my point is, this should be an error to begin with. Have errors become? Is it like traveling in the NBA, where it's like we're
I'm
only going to call the blatant
ones? That was
ones?
an error.
Yes.
In one ballpark, basically, because it's the pitcher that's throwing the no-hitter.
No, but that should be a. My point is, this should be an error in 32 ballparks.
It is. Yeah.
Or 30 ballparks. Sorry. Well, if you count Field of Dreams, so 31 ballparks. I don't know. I just wonder if, and we've had a lot of conversations this year about this, where it feels like errors have been harder to acquire this year. Again, it's like traveling in the NBA. If it's very blatant, we'll call it. If not, gather step. If not, that's a Euro. And that's what it feels like with Ayers right now. Well, you know, it hit his glove, but he slipped a little bit because he over-pursued. We're gonna call that a hit.
Especially during a no-hitter. That's what was wild to me is the scorebook guy, the official scorer is the guy that breaks up the no-hitter, not an actual hit. If it was a hit to begin with, that's one thing.
Yes.
But you marked it an error, so leave it an error, dude. So, over the line.
Mark an error, dude. That's a hit, man.
This is rules.
There are rules.
There are rules,
This
Smokey.
isn't non-Smokey.
So, I mean, I think that if it was an error to begin with, because of the no-hit bid, I just always thought that was kind of unwritten, that you just leave it, and then, you know, hey.
Yes.
Also, you're not really going to get called back upon for calling that. No one's going to go back and look at that and be like, wow, that was, I don't know, did you give it to him because he had the. No, that looks like an error.
Yes.
I mean, it has the aesthetics of an error of the, you know, Barnum and Bailey, the whole, you know, yakety sacks. Like, it's an error. A guy slipped on a baseball field when he was going to field a routine ground ball.
Yeah.
How's that a hit?
Makes zero sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
Zero. In his glove.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Bubic gave up another hit, a legit hit later on.
Right.
So,
but that's the thing, as the scorekeeper, don't you just want to let that happen? Because most of the time, there's not a lot of no-hitters and perfect games in baseball for a reason.
yes.
Like, most of the time, that ends up happening.
Yes.
So why would you put yourself in the, what did we say yesterday, the jackpot seat or whatever? Your ass is in the jackpot.
Your ass in the jackpot.
Why would you do that to yourself as a scorekeeper on the road when everyone's going to be looking at you anyway because of that? I don't know. That was ridiculous because of the no-hitter. If there wasn't a no-hitter, no one would care. So why would you do that? Just
Yes.
leave it.
I want to get more into Chris Bubic. I want to talk some overarching thoughts, too, not about the hitting because we know the hitting is buns. We'll talk briefly about that, but also about the debacle on the base paths, which at least this team doesn't get on base because they don't know what to do when they get on. Hunter Renfroe, okay, I can't get mad at Hunter Renfroe. He's not used to being on base. He forgot how to run the bases. He's not used to being on base. We can't blame him for that. That was brutal. Brutal. But I want to talk about Chris Bubic. Keep it positive here because Bubic absolutely was dealing 7 innings, 2 hits, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. Lowers his ERA to 1.47. He is 5-2, and I wanted to bring up this comparison real quick. For all the talk about how good Brady Singer was to start the season, right? Because I don't want to say I was overvaluing Brady Singer, but I thought people were undervaluing what he did last year, right? That's more or less where I came from. And the whole conversation was, can Chris Bubic be what Brady Singer was last year? And my pushback was, I don't know, that's a lot to ask for a guy who, coming off of all these injuries, hasn't done it in a extended period as a starter, was phenomenal as a reliever, but can that continue and translate, for 160-plus innings? Now, it's only been 61 1/3 so far for Bubic. But it's been a ridiculous 61 1/3 for Bubic. He is over a third of the way there of expectations for me, innings-wise. And when I break it down, we talked about Brady to start the year. He's learning the cutter. The cutter's been effective. Do you want to take a guess where Brady Singer's ERA is this year? Because it was really good. Remember, his first couple of starts, he was phenomenal.
Yeah, I was about to go low. Now I might go 3.75, 4.
5.01.
Wow.
5.0. He's somehow still 5-2. 5.01 ERA, 46 2/3 innings, 43 strikeouts. He's been on a rough stretch.
It'd be interesting to see where the Reds rank as far as like runs scored in offense, because you look at his ERA 5-2, probably because he gets a lot of run support.
Correct. So I wanted to bring that up, not to take a bleep on Brady, because I still think what Brady did last year was phenomenal for KC. The point is, one, Indy hasn't been great in KC. Singer's been worse for Cincy. But can Chris Bubic take over the Brady Singer role? The answer has been a resounding yes. He's thrown 15 more innings, one more start. He has over 3.5 runs less per 9 than Brady Singer. Better strikeout per 9 than Brady Singer. Much lower whip. Point remains, we need to talk more about what Kris Bubic has done and his transformation. When you look right now on Baseball Savant and you look at Kris Bubic and where he ranks in all of pitching in Major League Baseball this year in 2025, he's in the 98th percentile of pitching run value. And I know people, take a drink, everyone at home. Jason's not here to do this for me since he's gone. So I'm getting ready to say something. Dylan, if you have a drink, feel free to get that cup up in your hand. The underlying numbers of Brady Singer are damn good, too. We're not talking about a guy who is an outlier right now. We're not talking about Brad Keller that one season where he outperformed all the underlying numbers. What Kris Bubic is doing and has done is sustainable. There's not a cliff waiting for him to fall off like a Looney Tune. I understand he's not going to have a 1.47, but anything higher than a 3, I think would be surprising, would be shocking. His expected ERA is a 3.06. Yes, it's lower by a decent amount, but we're not talking about a guy who has a 5 who's pitching to these kind of numbers. The chase rate, the whiff rate, all up. The arm angle. Let me see if I can go back and pull this one up here on the arm angle, which I dropped 3 degrees from last year. Phenomenal last year. Just something to keep an eye on here. He learned a slider, throwing that at 13% this year. For a guy that averages 92.3 miles an hour on his fastball looks explosive. Why? I've talked about it before. 1, he has good extension. 2, if you pull up the movement profile, the induced break of Kris Bubic's four-seam fastball, it rises. His four-seam fastball compared to the league, look this up. If anyone's at home, look up Baseball Savant and look exactly where his four-seam fastball is compared to league average. That ball is rising. So that 92, that 93, it looks like 96. If you are wondering why he gets so many pop-ups, so much weak contact, so many swing and misses on balls underneath, that four-seam fastball has rise. Dudes are batting .221 this year and slugging .326 against the four-seamer. His changeup, the bread and butter. Dudes are batting .139, slugging .139 against the changeup. Those two pitches alone, so much break, so much movement, have allowed Kris Bubic to thrive while throwing 92, 93. The whole Royals pitching staff, all the coaches, deserve a lot of credit. But I want to talk more about Kris Bubic and give him the credit he deserves. Learning the slider, understanding what his four-seamer does, the spin, the rotation. Because how many years have we been talking about the Cleveland Guardians being a pitching masterclass? Doesn't matter who they are, they find ways. What about the Houston Astros? Finding guys, spin rate, getting into the more analytical side of the game. We said, why can't the Royals do that? The Royals now are doing that. Kris Bubic, again, shout out to you. We are nearly 50 games in, 49 games in. He's 10 starts in. It is time to have serious talk about Kris Bubic for Cy Young. I'm going to look up his Cy Young odds. You want to take a guess, Dylan, where his Cy Young odds are right now?
It seems like a plus 1,400. What's his ERA?
1.47.
Yeah, not because he's not good, not because he doesn't deserve it, just because it's half the awards, and those type of awards is almost like how much are they on TV? Are they on, a good team? the Yankees, Dodgers.
Royals are on a good team.
No, I agree. I'm just saying that part of that, Now, the argument against that is Tarek Skubal, but the Detroit Tigers are a pretty damn good team now. So
he is plus 4,000.
Damn.
This was a few days ago, so didn't count his last start, from where I'm seeing at least.
So I was actually more positive than I thought.
You
I
were
was
more
being.
positive.
Yeah.
He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's ninth.
That's kind of where I was thinking. Who's won?
Tariq Skubal.
Okay.
And then Max Fried.
There you go.
Hunter Brown.
Who's he play for?
Great. Astros. He's been great. Garrett Crochet, Boston. Nathan Eovaldi, Rangers. Jacob deGrom, Rangers. Brian Wu, Seattle. Cole Reagans, and then Chris Bubich. It's
That's
funny.
pretty good to have two.
It's funny that Reagans is still up there after
That's
so
true.
far, and he's going to be placed on the 15-day, or he is placed on the 15-day IL. So
It's on name, but he's still a damn good pitcher when he's healthy, so we'll just get him back, and then we have two guys that are in the Cy Young contention.
Point remains for me. I want to get Chris Bubich some Cy Young love, some all-star love. If Chris Bubich continues to do this and shoves and deals and is not even considered, because I get people don't know his name, but Reagan's got his name recognized pretty darn quick for KC, right? Chris Bubich should get that as well. Let's take a break. I'm going to talk more about the Royals. I'm going to talk about the base running, some of the offense. I'm going to give Q a grade. Think about this, Dylan. What grade would you give Matt Quatrero so far this year through 49 games? Where we land right there. We'll take a break, come back. The Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Welcome back to the Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, Adam Teicher of ESPN joins at 11 talking Chiefs. Daniel Harms of RGR Football joins at 1. Then the interview I had with Alex Smith, that will be in the noon. Talking Royals right now. Talked about the Cy Young case for Chris Bubich, the third best ERA in the AL, fourth in innings pitched in the AL, with a 1.06 whip, sitting at 5-2. Chris Bubich has been dealing. All right. Is this the worst base running team in baseball? Can we get Rusty Kuntz back? What's Rusty up to? This base running has been abysmal. I know we joke. Hunter Renfroe doesn't know what it's like to be on base, so how can you blame him for having a miscue on the base paths? He's not used to being there. Dylan? Come on, you can't blame the guy. It's like his third time all year. He doesn't know what to do. But being serious, it's not just Hunter.
The guy that is on the team to run bases, and Dyron Blanco,
gets thrown out and just goes on. And I don't want to hear about blocking the baits. No.
Yeah, no.
He was out. He was out. It wasn't even close.
If you're arguing for a technicality to make him safe, then, I actually appreciate Q going out there and getting tossed. Maybe there was a bunch of other times.
He got tossed quick, by the way.
Oh, for sure. No, I think that was his goal. That was if you're going to run all the way out to the second base umpire like that, I think your goal is to get thrown out. Yeah, I could probably pick a lot more like closer calls,
Sure.
But I kind of like it. I kind of appreciate him, and that's what I think we've been asking for was a little more emotion.
Yeah.
So,
but
I just don't think, I don't think it's a good look that your pinch runner the guy who's probably your best pinch runner. Would you agree? In Dyron Blanco, he's probably the first person you're calling off the bench to pinch run with his speed.
Yes, but I've never thought he's a great base stealer. He's fast.
Right. No, I'm saying though, like just to get thrown out like that is Little League.
Yeah, I was. And it feels like this team has that happen too much. Michael Garcia, who was really, really good last year, stealing bases. Phenomenal last year stealing bases. Really has struggled this year. Bobby Witt Jr. has been better this year than last year stealing bases, but it's still not at the clip that I think we all expect from a guy who is as talented, as fast, all of that as he is. The reason why it's so frustrating is because this team does not get on base a ton. They have really struggled with runners in scoring position. I got to go back down now. You can just go to the bottom, Dylan. I don't know why I try to look for them. Just go to 30. There they are. OPSing 600. Worst OPS in baseball with runners in scoring position. Batting 222 with runners in scoring position. That's not worst average-wise, but it's not great, Bob. Worst OPS at 600. Slugging 314, on base 286, batting average 222. Got a lot of sack hits, though. I mean, if you want to look at why the Royals' offense has been as bad as it is, and if you're wondering where do they rank in the AL in regards to runs scored, want to take a guess at where they sit out of 15 teams and runs scored in the AL?
I think it's 15th because the two lower are in the National League, right? The ones that are like keep us from being the worst in baseball are in the National League. And the Pirates and Rockies, right?
Pirates and Rockies.
And then us at third, which would make us dead last in the AL.
So they technically have passed Chicago White Sox.
Yikes.
You know why? They've played more games than the White Sox.
I mean,
by 4, it's 4 runs.
Being in
more
the
games.
neighborhood of that is bad enough. So.
They are 14th in the AL. And again, they've played more games. One more game than the White Sox. Yeah, 4 runs, though. Because the White Sox score
5
4
more games, I'd still be upset at that.
Yes. And again, the reason remains, if we want to talk, instead of just sitting here and complaining about the hitters.
Because here's the thing is, as much as we've complained about this team, what'd you say when we opened the show? They're tied for what with the most wins?
Tied for second in the AL.
Exactly. I thought the sky was falling. I looked at the standings yesterday, and I couldn't believe it.
And so when you look at it and try and break it down and show where are they struggling harder versus just complaining about it, they're struggling with runners in scoring position. Let me see if I can find even someone like Bobby Witt Jr. I'm not trying to take a shot at it's the Mike Sweeney complaint. Everyone struggles, but Mike Sweeney all of a sudden, pops out with a guy on third with 2 outs, and now we're blaming Mike Sweeney. No, it's because the rest of the team has been really, really bad. I'm trying to find. Here we go. Do you know what Bobby Witt Jr. is doing this year with runners in scoring position? It's improved a lot recently, actually.
What's that?
He's batting 273.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
That's really good.
273 with runners in scoring position. But overall, on the year, he's hitting 302. Everyone has struggled with runners in scoring position. That is where the issue really arises from on this Royals offense, in my opinion. They had 10 hits this game.
Yeah, again, when you looked at the box score, when Bubic was throwing the no-hitter, when it was 0-0, it was like 5 hits to 0.
5-0, 7-0.
They just don't time, they don't, like you're pointing out with the runners in scoring position, they don't string them together. Like, we are so spoiled when you think about the 2015 team. I know they just celebrated them.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it felt like if you got a runner on in the first, batter or whatever, it was over. That was going to be a run. They were going to bunt him over. He was somehow going to steal, then bunt over. Like, they were going to manufacture that run home. And that puts a lot of pressure on the pitcher, which we don't have. You can tell that, like, a pitcher gets a guy on with the Royals, and it's like there's no added, pressure. There's no what do they call those pitch? I think it's pressure pitches in the postseason where like you have to make a strike. This is not where we can dance around the zone here. You have to challenge this hitter. We don't really put pitchers in that position.
What it comes down to is the Royals don't slug. They don't hit many home runs, many doubles. It is the majority singles. And when you are bad on the base paths, for the most part,
but
and you're bad with runners in scoring position.
But the one thing I do want to, I hope that we're not trying to attack slugging percentage because the rest of the league is. Kind of like the Warriors and the three-point shot. Every team wants to shoot three-pointers because they're worth more than two, but not everyone can do it. So, home runs and doubles are worth more than singles, but are we the team that can make that happen? Are we trying to play the game that the entire league's playing without the right players? Are we going outside of what our team – I'm asking you this because I don't really know. But when you watch it, does that feel like what's happening where this team's trying to be a square peg in a round hole in the sense of we're trying to be a slugging percentage team when we should be a batting average team? We're a team that puts together 4 singles in a row and gets a run, or manufactures a couple runs, and that's how we win a baseball game.
Well, they should, but the issue is there's not enough depth offensively for that to happen. When you're having a guy who's batting, let's go ahead and just pull that.
I'm saying when we get a leadoff double.
No, I'm with you.
That should be an automatic run, especially on this team.
It should be.
Because you should bunt him over and somehow sacrifice fly or get the runner in.
The issue is when you have guys like Kevin Biggio hitting 177, I know we can talk about the on-base percentage all we want, but just strictly speaking of runners in scoring position and why the issue has been here. 177, Vinny's batting 228, Salvi's batting 218, Michael Massey 199, Hunter Renfroe 173.
I was about to point that out. If you bat Kevin Biggio, Massey, and Renfroe in a game, which happens probably a lot, you have 3 guys below the Mendoza line in your lineup.
I mean, they're with the Melendez line nearly. I mean, it just, this is what it comes down to is if you're not hitting enough doubles, enough triples, and again, this is not a Bobby thing because Bobby's still slugging 508. But look at the rest of the lineup. You have Bobby and Michael, and even your first baseman slugging 392 with Vinny. Hit a great home run last night. Vinny's looking like he's getting close, right? Salvador Perez still hitting the ball hard, right? He's slugging 324.
Right. What is slugging? Is it, okay.
You played college baseball.
I pitched, so I didn't really care about slugging percentage.
You should care what people are doing against you, dog.
I know what they're doing. Nothing. I'd rather have on-base percentage, in my opinion.
That's fair. That's fine. The Royals rank 18th in average, and they rank 26th in slug.
And slugging weights extra base hits and homers more.
Yeah, doubles, triples, home runs.
Right.
That's what slugging basically is.
But that's not our game. That's never been. I know that doubles are thrown in there and triples
doubles
are thrown
should
in.
be. You play in a big ballpark, doubles and triples should be.
I know, but those are home runs that barely miss as well.
The point, if you're not hitting singles and you're not hitting any extra base hits, runners in scoring position is going to nosedive. And this is where the issue arises and kind of the overarching point I wanted to bring up here, because we keep talking about this day after day after day. We've now found the root cause. They don't hit extra base hits, and they're horrendous with runners in scoring position. Okay. We keep talking about the minors. I'm with everyone. Renfroe got to go. I'm sorry. I don't care that he's starting to finally hit the ball semi-hard. The results are still brutal. And he can't play defense or, run the bases. So, some minor leaguers to talk about. Remember Joey Weimer, part of the India Singer trade, the throw-in? He just got placed on the IL and has been slashing 149, 274, 245. A guy who I thought was potentially going to make the opening day roster, right? I thought he might even have a chance over a Dairon Blanco because he is fairly fast as well, or Kevin Biggio. Well, He's not been good, and now he is injured. So then we go to a guy who's been real hot recently, Cam Devaney. Cam Devaney in AAA hit his third grand slam in his past 5 games. This week alone, 11 RBIs, 6 hits, 5 walks, 32 RBIs, 5th most in the International League, and he is 10th in the AAA at OPS at 950. Now he's more of a second base, shortstop, third base, more of a middle infielder. But with the way Michael Massey has struggled, the way that Kevin Biggio hasn't really given you much, do you try to shake things up? Because we keep talking about Jack Caglione, and as excited as I am about Jack getting called up to AAA, he's going to get some time there. It's not going to be a game or two. So what's the solution now? What's an option now? Well, Cam Devaney has been on a torrid stretch. The best the offense has looked, the best thing the Royals have done so far offensively to help them was bring up Drew Waters. Because Drew Waters has been average. We're not asking for greatness. We're asking for average. We're asking for be below average. Dylan, you know how much of an advantage below average would be versus Hunter Renfroe right now? Below average would be great. Just don't be the worst qualified hitter in baseball. That's what we're asking for. John Rave continues to hit this week, going 8 for 21, hit his 7th home run, 7 walks, 3 steals. Tyler Gentry, 3 multi-hit games this week, going 8 for 21, 381, 4 doubles. Nick Lofton's been great this year, but I don't know about you, Dylan. The Lofton train has somewhat sailed for me. Feels like a quad A guy. We saw what he did in the and maybe he needs another shot, another chance, but
It's just a different version of what we already have, right?
Yeah. I just don't see it. So again, that's more or less where I land right now. Like John Rave, Tyler Gentry, Cam Devaney, these are the guys we should talk about immediately, while I think Jack Caglione is the future solution, obviously. And I think future Jason might be right. It might be as soon as June 24th. But do you want to wait another month? About 30 games? 28 games? Is that how long you want to wait before there's a try for a Band-Aid on this Royals lineup? Because I don't. I don't want to wait 28-plus games for a Band-Aid. Try John Rave. Try Tyler Gentry. Try Cam Devaney. Try something. Because what's currently transpiring, it ain't it. And I don't care about everyone talking about how, well, you know, they're not going to do this if they get to the majors. Well, you know who's not doing it in the majors right now? Hunter Renfroe. Kevin Biggio. I can tell you who's not doing it currently. How much more of a sample size do you need? 49 games in. 49 games in. We'll take a break. Come back. The Zone. Sports Radio 810 WHB. $17.5 million per season, $33.5 million fully guaranteed at signing for his new quote-unquote 3-year contract, basically worth his, which is worth up to $51 million. The reason I want to ask him is, would or should the Chiefs have done that? Was that palatable? Was that possible? Would that made more sense than trying to find a long-term extension with Trey Smith? We'll find out all that and a lot of Chiefs talk coming your way. Adam Teicher next on The Zone. and now probably a very disappointed Adam Teicher from ESPN since I'm not Jason. Adam, how are you?
Good, Sterling. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. My house didn't get too much of the wreckage from the storms last night. There was a massive tree down outside my house. We saw our house actually on the news. It's pretty cool. Like, we're going to take a look at 107th Lamar, and my wife and I were like, wait, that's us. We didn't even know what was happening. We look outside. There's just a massive tree just falling across the street. So that was, I felt kind of cool right there. Like, that's my house on the news.
And you probably got in the TV shot just to kind of get on TV, right?
I tried walking out there. I was in my robe and sandals, try to really class the joint up. Didn't quite make it, I don't think.
Did you have your pipe too?
I tried the pipe, so I tried the smoking jack and all that stuff, but yeah, not quite. They said, "Sir, please go back in your abode," and so I had to, acquiesce there.
All right, I got you.
Yeah, your house okay? Your house okay from the storms?
As far as we can tell, yeah, but we have a park a couple blocks away, a couple big trees down, so kind of scary, no doubt.
Yeah, I know, and the destroyed our peonies. I mean, how dare you, storms? We finally had some pretty flowers, and the storms destroyed them. Adam, I want to talk to you about what the Bears did today. They gave Joe Thuney that 2-year contract extension. Now it's basically a 3-year contract, $51 million, $33.5 million fully guaranteed. The reason why I want to bring this up is I would have loved if the Chiefs did this deal. I was more or less on the camp of if you can get Joe Thuney for a 3-year overall, so this year and then the 2-year contract extension, I might do that over trying to extend Trey Smith because of what I think Trey Smith is going to want. And now we're finding out still, looking like it's a little harder than we all potentially thought to get that Trey Smith extension done. Just want to get your thoughts on this Joe Thuney extension, if that's something that you think the Chiefs should have done.
Well, they had to make a choice, right? One of the two. Couldn't keep them both under the current circumstances. And, at least they got something for Thuney. It wasn't a great pick, and then they've already given it away, right? But at least they got something for him. And, I would have opted for the younger player. He might be a little more expensive. I would have opted for the younger player. I think the Trey Smith in the long run is going to be the right thing for the Chiefs to do. You're right. I don't think that contract is going to necessarily be easy, but Chiefs had to make a choice. And, it was interesting because when as the season kind of wound down last year and the Chiefs were making plans for next year, they didn't think they were going to be able to keep Trey Smith on the franchise tag or otherwise, or with a long-term deal. They just sort of thought that was not going to happen. And so I think at that point, Joe Thuney and maybe extending him was more a part of their plan. But when the salary cap came in about $10 million more than what the Chiefs were planning on, they said, okay, we're going to shift and we can keep Trey Smith. But to do that, they were going to have to let Joe Thuney go. So they sort of made this choice. I mean, this is not something unexpected or anything like that. This is the choice they wanted to make, and I think it's the right one just because of the age of the player. And Trey Smith could, theoretically be around for the rest of Patrick Mahomes' career now if the Chiefs can get this deal done. And so might not be as easy as they hoped or Chiefs fans hope, but I still think eventually, again, they have they don't need to get them signed now until March of next year, so they have some time to get it done. My sense is it will get done, but it was an interesting decision, but I think it was the right one.
Where is your concern level overall, though, with where they stand with Trey Smith right now?
Yeah, it was a little bit ominous, I guess, when when Trey Smith signed his franchise tag so quickly. And that, to me, tells me he thought that he was maybe a little worried that a deal wasn't going to get done and that the Chiefs might pull the tag at some point, and that then teams would be out of money and he wasn't going to get any kind of big deal for this coming up season. So I think that's why you saw him be in such a hurry to get that deal done. So that's a little bit of an ominous sign. There's still plenty of time for things to get done, and I think something will get done. But it's definitely not off to a great start in that regard.
Adam Teicher is our guest. I'm going to stick on the offensive line right here. I'm going to do one positive and one negative. But let's start here. How bad would Jalen Moore have to play to see Josh Simmons this year at left tackle?
Oh, I think it's the other way around. I mean, how is Josh Simmons' knee? Because if Josh Simmons is okay, if he's ready to go and the Chiefs and Simmons feel like he can play and be an effective player, he's gonna be their left tackle. I don't think there's any question about that. So the question is when is he ready to go? When is he comfortable playing? How effective can he be when he does get out on the field? So I think right now, if you're asking me to handicap all that, Jalen Moore is plan B. Josh Simmons is plan A. Now, that can certainly change at a moment's notice, depending on what happens with his knee and how it comes along. But I think that this thing is more dependent on how Josh Simmons does and how quickly he can come along than anything Jalen Moore does or doesn't do.
That's really surprising to me because I guess how I viewed this was Jalen Moore is going to get the first crack. And, obviously, if Josh Simmons is phenomenal, he's completely healthy, then sure, I could see him getting the opportunity. But I guess for me, I would have said Jalen Moore was plan A, Josh Simmons plan B, at least for this season. Because that makes it interesting for me. I guess then the follow-up would be then how good if Jalen Moore starts the year. Let's just say Josh Simmons still ramping up, getting back, getting healthy, everything. He looks good. He's close, but not quite ready week 1, week 2 maybe, week 3, week 4, but maybe around the week 5 range. How good would Jalen Moore have to play to keep the left tackle spot? Or
that's an interesting question, and I don't think we know that right now. I think again, so much depends on what Josh Simmons, how his knee is, and I certainly if Jalen Moore is playing well, the Chiefs are in no hurry to get Josh Simmons out on the field. They don't have to be. They can, that buys them some time. So. It's almost impossible to say, but I do. The Chiefs, I think it's being maybe undersold a little bit how much the Chiefs really liked Josh Simmons. I mean, this just wasn't the best tackle on their board when they picked, and they're like, okay, let's take another swing at this. I mean, they really like Josh Simmons. They think that this guy has the potential to be a real high-end, very high-end left tackle. And, they've been so eager to find a guy ever since Eric Fisher walked out the door. They've been so eager to find a guy who can solve this problem, not only for the long term, but solve it in a big way for the long term. They want this to happen, and they want it to happen badly. So, Jalen Moore is a nice plan B in their eyes, but this is a long answer to your question, which is I don't know, but I think it's going to, again, this is going to depend more on Josh Simmons than Jalen Moore. And, at some point, Jalen Moore could theoretically play really well and keep the job. I mean, I don't think if he does that, then I think he could conceivably keep the job, assuming Simmons doesn't start camp on time and is late to the game. But, so I think that is possible. That's not an outrageous suggestion, but I'm not expecting that. I think that this is Josh Simmons' deal, and it more revolves around him and his readiness to play than anything else. So
I like the contingency plan then of still bringing in Jalen Moore. I know it's very, very expensive for a swing tackle, $21+ million guaranteed overall. It's a 2-year, $30 million deal, but if the Chiefs wanted to only have it for 1 year, $21 million guaranteed. Again, the contingency plan in place. You like to see that. What's the plan then for Jalen Moore? Is it a chance where he could go to right tackle? Maybe not this year. Would they bring him back again because it's not a huge cap savings? Would they like to see him at right tackle, or is this basically just a emergency swing tackle for 1 year?
No, I could see a Chiefs starting lineup in 2026 with Josh Simmons as the starting left tackle and Jalen Moore as the starting right tackle. I think that's completely in the realm of the possible. And matter of fact, if you're asking me how that's going to go, I'd say yes. Your 2026 starting offensive tackles are going to be Josh Simmons on the left side and Jalen Moore on the right. I mean, I would think that's a very, very realistic possibility. So we'll see how it goes. But, now that's what the Jalen Moore signing does. It gives them a little flexibility, not only in the case of Josh Simmons, but in the case of Jawan Taylor. I mean, they've got between the three of those guys, they've, in some fashion or form, they've got their starting tackles for the next 2 seasons. And, they don't necessarily need to worry about bringing anyone else in for a couple of years.
Adam Teicher of ESPN is our guest. I want to talk about the AFC West landscape overall because I really like what all 4 teams, but the other 3 teams in the AFC West did in the draft. I really like the Raiders' offseason overall, which is very weird to say that I actually liked what the Raiders did in the offseason. I don't think the Raiders are going to be good by any means, but I think they're going to be competent, which is what they needed. They needed to at least right the ship because they were trying to bail water for a long time, or at least pretend the water was not there. Bringing in Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, some sort of a competent quarterback play and head coach. I liked Ashton Genty overall. The Raiders, I think, made a lot of nice moves. You're gonna have Christian Wilkins back on the defensive line with Max Crosby. You look at a team like the Chargers. Justin Herbert's obviously very, very solid. Ladd McConkey heading into year 2, but I liked a lot of what the Chargers did as well. The Broncos just doubling down on defense and hoping to try and win these. The Royals of the NFL, basically, what the Broncos are going to try and be this upcoming season. What was your takeaway on the AFC West so far in the offseason and what the landscape looks like?
The Royals of the NFL. I like that. I wonder if the Broncos like that, though. I think, you had to like the moves that everybody else in the division made. I mean, this is going to be a more competitive division that it's been in some time. And, hey, the Chiefs have won what now? 9 straight AFC West championships, right? So the assumption is, well, the Chiefs have just sort of had an easy time of it every year. No, there's been a couple of those, 2 or 3 of those years they've had to fight down to the end. There's been a couple of them where they actually tied. They won the tiebreakers, but so it hasn't always been easy for the Chiefs, and I can see this year it coming down to the end. I don't think there's going to be any Week 18 where the Chiefs are going to have the division locked up and they can rest all their starters like they've done the last 2 years. I don't see that this year. I think this is going to be a far more competitive division. I don't think the Raiders are on the level of the other 3 teams, but you're right. They finally have some adults in the room, and it looks like that they're starting to figure some things out there, and at least things will be a lot more stable there than they've been. And I think that's going to pay off big dividends for the Raiders. So, the division is going to be much more difficult to win. I still like the Chiefs to win it, but I could see the Broncos winning it. Yeah, I could. I think they're the number 2 team in that race in my mind. I look at the games the Chiefs played against the Broncos the last 2 years since Sean Payton's been coaching in Denver, and they've given the Chiefs everything they wanted in all 4 of those games. So I think those are going to be really tough matchups, and I think the Chargers games are going to be close games. It seems like they always are with the Chargers. So definitely a more competitive division than it's been even last season, and I think it's going to come down to the end this year.
Yeah, well, I actually like that, though, for Kansas City when they play the Broncos in Denver. They're coming off of a bye. Yes, it's after the Bills game, and you're going to probably expend a lot of energy in that one because you might think of playoff implications and seeding. But having the bye, I haven't gotten your thoughts on this one, Adam Teicher, but I think that the Chiefs' schedule actually played out about as good as it could have. You don't really have that stretch last year where there was a lot of complaints about 3 games in 10 days. You don't have to go back-to-back road games. You have the Bills on the road, then a bye, then the Broncos on the road for a one schedule where, yeah, you play a lot of really good teams, obviously, with the Bills, the Eagles, the Texans, and all these other teams, the Lions. I thought it actually was a pretty good break for KC overall.
Yeah, they got to play those teams anyway, so how it lines up, I think is a little. Hey, you just don't know where a team's going to be at a certain point in the season. Maybe you catch the Lions, for instance, at a good time, or the Eagles, or whoever it might be. But boy, it sure looks like there are some minefields in that schedule. Starting out with the Chargers, thousands of miles away, and then coming back to play the Eagles, and the Baltimore looms and the Lions loom. I mean, that's a pretty difficult opening stretch, and they're going to be jacked up down in Jacksonville for that Monday night game against the Chiefs. So that I don't think that one's going to be easy necessarily. So the Giants going to have their home opener against the Chiefs in Week 3. I mean, that looks like a pretty good minefield to start things off with. And then the other thing that caught my eye was the end of the season. I mean, 3 of the last 4 games are against division teams. So I think. That's where the West is going to be won. How the Chiefs can handle that stretch right there, and are they going to be still in good shape to do that? So it is an interesting schedule. I mean, they're always interesting, but those are the things that sort of caught my eye.
Adam Teicher of ESPN is our guest. What do you think the biggest change for the Chiefs will be from 2024 into 2025? What will the biggest difference be?
Change. And how do you define change? Like
not personnel, but just maybe even stylistically. Because I have something that I'll tell you mine. Mine, for example, is the Chiefs' deep ball. They were so brutal last year,
okay.
and it wasn't just you can't blame it all on the offensive line. Patrick Mahomes, even when he had time, really struggled connecting on the deep ball. I mean, it was towards the bottom of the NFL, which was a massive surprise. I know that's not always been his strength, but it was a massive weakness last year. I think that's going to improve. I think he's a guy who's going to attack that and understand what he did. Yes, injuries played a part. Obviously, the game plan was different going from the preseason into OTAs into the preseason into the regular season because of injuries to wide receivers, offensive line, but still, Mahomes has to be better, and I think he will be. So I think the biggest change will be the Chiefs' ability to connect on the deep ball this year. I don't know if you have a similar thought process.
Yeah, big plays offensively, I think, is more of a general thing. But yes, and that what you're talking about certainly fits in. The Chiefs really were encouraged by what they saw from their passing game at training camp last year, and thought that the combination of Rice, Worthy, and Brown at wide receiver was going to be a big deal for them. That was going to make a difference. And then, of course, we know that Hollywood didn't even make it to the regular season. Worthy early in the year still figuring things out, and Rice gets hurt, and they've never had what they anticipated having. They certainly think that by bringing Hollywood back and with Rice coming back in the lineup, they can have that semblance of what they thought they would have last year. We'll see, but I do think there is that possibility. At running back, I'm kind of curious to see what, if anything, Elijah Mitchell can add, and also Brashard Smith. What can these guys add to the mix here, and can they give something? On paper, they give something to the Chiefs that they haven't had in their backfield for quite some time, and so I'm curious, how they use those guys. Can Mitchell stay healthy? Can Smith be a big contributor as a 7th-round draft pick? That kind of stuff. But I'm eager to see how it works out with those 2 guys as well, because I think they can fit into that big play category that I'm talking about here.
How does the running back room shake out in your mind then? With Isaiah Pacheco obviously still thrown in there. If you want to throw in Carson Steele too, we can do that. Kareem Hunt coming back on that 1-year deal. He kind of is the only one who's more of a different flavor, I guess, now at this point is Kareem Hunt as far as the short yardage guy. How do you see it breaking down?
Yeah, I think that's going to play out. I mean, that's something we're probably going to have to learn in training camp. Certainly, one thing to watch with Kareem Hunt is he's getting older, and can he still be a complete player for the Chiefs? And can he do the short yardage stuff, which he's been really good at? Can he? He's been a very good receiver too, maybe underutilized in that role a little bit last year. The Chiefs loved Samaje Perine as their third down back. I'm thinking Hunt gets more of that this year than he did last year. But then again, Mitchell and maybe Rashard Smith figure into that as well. So I think a lot of this has to play out, and particularly with Mitchell and Smith, I want to see what they can add, and in Mitchell's case, whether he can stay healthy, which he hasn't done in a while. How does Pacheco fit in? I mean, he's going to have to play better and be more productive than he was during his playing time last year. So, maybe he will be, having this time off to get healthier than he was, but we'll see. So I think that's a work in progress. I know the Chiefs have some plans and some hopes for those positions, but it rarely works out the way you figure it will. And so, they've needed to dig deep into their depth. At running back the last several years because of injuries and other reasons, and now I'm thinking they're probably going to have to do that again at some point this year.
Yeah, what's interesting is with Isaiah Pacheco, actually, I find the hardest, what does he do better than the other three? Like, he doesn't have a specific skill set like Kareem Hunt, short yardage and vision. Rashard Smith, pass catching, obviously, and explosiveness. Elijah Mitchell will obviously see post-injury, but the explosive plays as well. Isaiah Pacheco, especially what we'll see him coming off of injury with a full offseason to get completely healthy, looks like, but it wasn't great last year. So I actually think Isaiah Pacheco is the one I'm keeping an eye on to see what he looks like and what his role might even be. Adam Teicher of ESPN is our guest. With the wide receiver room, before we take a break here, was Hollywood the biggest surprise of him coming back in your mind? Because I don't know if I was surprised he came back, but I didn't know if I was counting on him coming back, and yet it feels like no one's talking about him. Yet when he played in the smattering of games at the end of the season, his target share was absolutely ridiculous. I just don't know what to make of Hollywood Brown, if he's an absolute X factor or if it's even someone you can count on.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I think we're all going to find out this year if he can stay healthy. That's been a problem for him too recently. So we'll see if he can stay in the lineup. But the Chiefs, everything you were hearing from them is they wanted, when the season was over, or even before the season was over, they wanted him back. They thought the player that they got was toward the end of the year, the one that came back after the injury, was not a representative or a good example of what kind of player he can be. And so we'll see if they're right or not. But, there's, for all the talk about Jalen Royals and, the Chiefs drafting him and how much he's going to help, I really feel they've got their top three wide receivers as long as everyone's healthy. We'll see how Rice comes back and what kind of contribution he can make right away. Can he still be that same kind of player coming off the injury? It doesn't always work out the way they hope, but the Chiefs have their top three wide receivers. And so if those guys stay healthy and are productive, I don't know how much is going to be left for Jalen Royals. They got Juju Smith-Schuster also. So I don't know how much of an impact Royals will have as a rookie. I don't know how much of a chance he will get, given the way the Chiefs feel about the other guys ahead of him on the depth chart. But, yeah, in terms of Hollywood, I think the Chiefs feel like he's perfect for what they want to do and what they want to get done. And so, no, I was not surprised. I'm maybe a little bit surprised that he was so eager to come back. Maybe I didn't know how he necessarily felt about that, but obviously, he feels pretty good that this is a good spot for him. So hard to know what, in terms of numbers, what kind of production he might give the Chiefs this year, but the Chiefs are pretty optimistic that it's going to be something good if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I think on May 20th, I know we're a long, long ways away, Adam. He's my X factor for this season as far as maybe the most variance of any guy on this, at least projected 53-man roster. Adam Teicher of ESPN is our guest. We will take a break right here on the Zone Sports Radio 810 WHB. Welcome back to the Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, Adam Teicher of ESPN is our guest. We kind of left that conversation there, Adam, talking about Rashee Rice, and I want to know your thoughts on a couple of things with him in particular. One, do you think he actually gets suspended this year? And two, what should expectations be like? Do we expect a step back after the major injury he sustained? He's known for the yak ability, so good with the ball in his hands, yards after catch. Is that going to be dissipated at all or hindered by the injury, or do you think he's going to be the same guy he was prior to it? Where do you land on expectations for Rashee?
Yeah, it's hard to know without seeing him in person, and want to get a good look at him. I'm assuming he'll when the OTAs start, he'll be out there at least doing some stuff, so you get a better idea. But for now, everything I hear suggests that he's doing really well, and he should be ready to go. But you just never know. I mean, it's tough a lot of times. We see a guy get back in the lineup and just assume he's the same guy he was the day he left. Well, a lot of times it takes some time for guys to get back up to speed. So my expectations for him is maybe a little slow, little less production maybe from him early in the season, but then maybe things should ramp up during the season. But we'll see. But I know that the Chiefs are really counting on him for a big season. I mean, there's no. It's impossible to overstate how they felt like that devastated their season when he had that injury out in L.A. Last year. I mean, that was the Chiefs were just quietly devastated. They are really amazed as they look back on it. Won 15 of their first 16 games, mostly without him. I mean, and Hollywood Brown. I mean, that I think if you had told the Chiefs, well, without Rashee Rice, you're going to continue to win games and go 15-1 to start the season, I think they would have been a little surprised by that.
When we look back on last year, do you think time is going to do it justice or do it well? Because I've been the proponent of, I think we're going to look back at last year and be almost enamored by how good the Chiefs were able to play and how many games they're able to win and make it back to a third straight Super Bowl with the amount of injuries they sustained, with the play on the offensive line. I know the Super Bowl game itself is going to, hold a bad place in our hearts for a long, long time. But I do think if you look back in 10 years or so, we're going to look back and be like, that is damn impressive what that team was able to accomplish.
Yeah, no, I think there's no doubt they overachieved last year. That still a talented team and still one capable of good things. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But going 15-1 to start the year before they waved the white flag in Denver at the end of the year, and then making it, beating Houston and beating Buffalo to make it to the Super Bowl. But I think if the Super Bowl was anything, it was confirmation that their flaws adequately or more than adequately and get to a Super Bowl, win another division championship. It was remarkable what they were able to achieve last year with some of the guys who were hurt and some of the guys who they have not playing maybe as well as they had in the past. So I think we will. Yeah, no, I think that part of the 2024 Chiefs may be going to be underappreciated.
Yeah. With the NFL talking more and more about banning the tush push, where do you land on this? Because I have changed my views multiple times on this, Teicher. I went from, now you can't ban it. That's kind of silly too. No, you know what? After watching Washington try and stop it in the playoffs, and the NFL going, we're going to award the Eagles a touchdown if at our discretion. I go, you know what? No, ban it now. And now I'm back on. Okay, just because one team really does it very, very well, I don't know how you enforce this. I think it's going to be too convoluted. I'm back on team, let the tush push live in the NFL. Where do you land on all of this?
Well, I just don't know why that play would be outlawed without a good reason. Hey, now if the reason is it's too dangerous, okay, we'll prove it and then outlaw it, But for now, I just don't know why you would ban the tush push when there's no reason for that other than one team's good at it and no one else is good at it. Hey, in the early years of Mahomes, should they have banned the forward pass because the Chiefs were good at throwing the football? I mean, that's ridiculous. So I just don't get the arguments here. I don't know. The people who say, "Oh, it's not real football." Well, really? I mean, what in the rules says that this is not real football? To me, it's a football play if the rules allow for it. So, credit to the Eagles for uncovering something that no one else found, or sort of making this a thing, and credit to them for making it work, to being so good at it. So I just hate to see something legislated out because one team's good and and the rest aren't, and that seems to be the reason that opponents don't like it. So I until I see more evidence or a good reason to ban the thing, I'd say let it live.
I agree, and also it's football. It's just not modern football. Is where they're, missing the boat on that one. Like, it's more the origins of football than anything. If you talk about, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, the way it used to be in like the 40s and 50s. So I don't know what they're saying when it's not a football play. It's just not a modern football play.
Yeah, I just don't get the arguments. I really don't.
Agree.
I mean, this is kind of a humorous thing, if you ask me.
It is funny because Dylan is team 1920s football. He thinks that was the perfect evolution
Remember, I'm Rob
of
Lowe
football.
with the hat. I'm a man of the shield. I'm a NFL fan, so I am just of the belief that if you want to stop something, you can't legislate it out of the game. You got to stop it. And they didn't want to legislate it out of the game when we beat them in the Super Bowl. It wasn't that big of a deal. But now that they won the Super Bowl, now we have to legislate it out of the game.
Dylan and his team ban the forward pass. That's what he wants.
He wants to bring the goalpost back to the middle or the front of the end zone.
Absolutely.
That's what he wants. He wants to see that.
The old Newt Rockne day. Those
there
days.
You go.
All right, Tysher, I have a great thought on this to put a bow on the tush push. So it was 16-16, right? 16 owners for, 16 against. And I said, what if we get the owners together, you pick your best 11 from about a yard and a half out. If team pro versus team against tush push, you run the tush push. If the people who are against it stop them, it doesn't pass. If the 80-year-olds who want the tush push to go through, they pick up that yard and a half, it's still allowed. What do you think, Tysher? I'm saying that's a pay-per-view event. The owners are all about making money. I'd buy that.
As ridiculous of an idea as that is, that's the best idea I've heard to resolve this. So, let's do it, and I'll live with the results. I'm good with that.
I love it. See, and again, the owners are about their money. So Dylan said he'd throw in $5 to watch it. I'm throwing some money to watch that on pay-per-view. It'd be great. Clark Hunt, Jerry Jones getting it after it. Come on. Who doesn't want to watch that?
I'd love to see the fighting after the play, too. That would be very telling.
Yeah, I think Shad Khan is maybe one of the younger GMs, right? I don't know what the ages are of all the owners, I should say. Whoever the younger ones are, they have a real big advantage.
There you go.
Real big advantage.
Sign me up for pay-per-view, no doubt.
Brock Purdy and this ridiculous contract extension. I've been on record. I said the Niners shouldn't do this. I actually didn't think the Niners would do this. Of all teams, other than the Niners understood the value of maybe 2 through 53 and not putting so much emphasis on the one, which is the quarterback. They've made it to a Super Bowl with Brock, made it to one with Jimmy Garoppolo. We saw what happened last year with the injuries surrounding him, with the injuries to the cast of 49ers, how they just completely crumbled around Brock. He wasn't able to elevate them, but yet he is still going to get paid like a superstar. What's your takeaway on Brock Purdy getting paid like this?
Well, we can argue whether he's deserving of it or not. I mean, I don't know that, he necessarily is. But here's what and teams do this, and they should do this. And one of the things that teams factor in is, okay, if we just let Brock Purdy go or trade him or whatever, let him go as a free agent, whatever, what do we do as a replacement? And that always has to factor into any decision about a quarterback. And to me, I feel like when kind of a middling guy who maybe hasn't produced the way you think he should gets a big contract, I feel like that's always factored into the decision by the team who gives them the contract, is they felt like their inability to find an adequate replacement was horrible. Their chances of doing that just weren't very good. And so, what do the 49ers do if they don't sign him? They have him for one more year, and then he's gone. And so, what does that world look like? We saw what the 49ers tried to do before they had Brock Purdy, or at least before Brock Purdy became Brock Purdy. They traded up and traded a boatload of picks for Trey Lance, right? And how did that work out for him? So, it's expensive to find quarterbacks, and maybe if you go by his production and how he compares to some of the better quarterbacks in the league, Brock Purdy doesn't deserve a deal like that. But you can't look at it. That can't be your only view of this deal. You have to look at what will the 49ers be like without him. What's their future? How do they go about getting that quarterback? I don't know. It's really tough. It's a tough decision. I mean, these are not easy decisions, but I can't say what the 49ers did was the right one, but I feel like that was a big part of their decision, was that they were afraid of their future and their quarterback future if they did not get this deal done.
I can tell you what they look like when he's the focal point. They go 6-11. I mean, that's what it was. So, and again, I know it's a little bit overblown because of some of the injuries that some of those guys will come back. But I mean, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, if you're getting paid CMC, if you're getting paid that much money, your job's to elevate, and he's done an elevator. And again, I guess it's not really even a frustration. I'm as a Chiefs fan, I'm thrilled by this. Keep overpaying these middling quarterbacks, and it just destroys, the salary cap for these specific teams because of the cap space. Fine, keep doing it. I just, as a, I don't know, trying to get into the NFL economics here, I just don't understand, because when was the last time one of these has worked? To a middling quarter, and middling. I'm not trying to be a 8 to 15 quarterback. When was the last time this were a non-elevator? Trevor Lawrence. How has that worked out? Baker Mayfield, to an extent, okay. It's worked out okay, but that's also because they're playing in the NFC South, where 10 wins is enough to get you there. Geno Smith in Seattle, did that really work out? Daniel Jones obviously is a different situation, of course, but you go through the list of all these quarterbacks, and I can't really find one that's worked.
Yeah, no, the problem is that there's not enough good quarterbacks to go around. I mean, not every team's going to have a great quarterback. And so you got to do, when that's the case, you got to do what you think is best. And, again, I can't tell you that what the 49ers did was best, but they were looking at a future that was really ugly. And at least they got a known quantity at quarterback now. And maybe he's not the best quarterback in the league. I certainly wouldn't take him first overall, but this is the cost of doing business sometimes.
And that's a business I wouldn't be in. You know what, though? I like disagreeing with you, Adam. This is fun. See, I'm so used to agreeing with you. It's nice to have a slight disagreement.
Well, I think we all know that I'm right and you're wrong, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes. All
right, Dylan, tiebreaker. Tiebreaker, Dylan. Whose side you taking?
I'm going to go with Adam.
Ah, man, that's a smart decision.
Yeah.
Smart, astute, Dylan. That's an astute decision. Adam Teicher of ESPN. Really appreciate your time today. Sorry I'm not Jason, so hopefully you still had at least slightly fun.
All right. Hey, my dog is getting mad at you, so it's time for me to go here.
Yeah, go hang with your dogs. I'm sorry I can't. Pet your dogs for me, Adam. Appreciate it.
I will do that. Take care, guys.
Adam Teicher of ESPN was our guest right there. When the dogs get mad, you got to go. Those are the rules. And pet your dog for me. What kind of dog do you think Teicher has?
Lab. I would guess lab, maybe.
Basset Hound?
No, that's I have a Basset Hound. I would say that sounded like a larger dog bark.
A larger dog, yeah.
So I'd say lab or retriever of some sort.
There is some roof down in there. You got to get that going.
Yeah.
Got to get that going. That was always fun. I feel bad, ending on a disagreement, but I will just never get over and understanding the paying a quarterback who's not an elevator like he is.
Well, his take, I feel like, is more like they're paying these guys as far as job security. Maybe not as much as he deserves this money. It's more,
it's the what if you
CYA.
It's the what do you do?
Yeah.
It's the what do you do? If you don't bring him back, then what do you do? And my point is, every time these guys sign and overpay for these quarterbacks, I can't think of one that's worked out.
I mean, would you trust the 49ers to draft another quarterback?
They drafted Brock Purdy.
I'm saying,
I know, and it was the last pick of the draft, and they drafted Trey Lance and traded all that stuff up for them.
When they targeted a quarterback, would you trust the 49ers?
It was brutal.
Okay.
No, but my point is they got there with Jimmy G. I'm not saying you have to draft one. I'm saying you could also bring in one of those.
Yeah, but then Jimmy G the very next season was awful.
Awful.
And he's always injured too.
Sure.
That's the other thing.
And Brock Purdy's been injured too.
Well, that was a freak accident. That's only happened maybe 2 or 3 times in the history of football. I know, I agree, but it's not like perpetually Brock Purdy is constantly having elbow issues. Like that elbow issue was a hit that caused it. It wasn't non-contact.
I guess my point is, and it will continuously be this, when people are put in this situation, they go, well, what do you do? I go, you move on. I'm team you move on.
And get who?
Anyone.
That's the question you have to ask yourself.
What's better, Brock Purdy at 53 or Sam Darnold for 30? He was already there, by the way, in San Fran. $30 million plus you also get to keep $22 million for another elite player. What's better?
I don't know. They seem to think Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Versus 1 year of Sam Darnold.
Again,
in a offense that was completely in his favor with weapons all over the place.
I get it, but that's my point. You'd be able to keep weapons all over the place. We know what Brock Purdy did when he didn't have weapons.
You can't, though. They had to trade Debo. So you only have Ayuk and Kittle.
That's my point. You think it's be better? Yeah. Like, that's my point. You think this is going to work out? I mean, again.
I think it's the same thing. And also you have the security, and he's your guy. And remember, when you pay a player, you're also telling the building, this is what we want out of a player. This is how we want you to act.
Sure.
This is how we want our culture to be. So if he's done everything right in the building and he's the leader of your team and you say, nah, I'm good. We're not going to pay him. See ya. A play on your tag. That's going to set quite a feeling around the building.
You don't pay good guys. You're not building just to pay good guys. You and I are great guys. We ain't getting paid $53 million.
No. I agree with that, but Brock Purdy's been a little bit better than just a great guy. You got to 2 NFC championships, won 1, been to a Super Bowl. If a guy doesn't have a ball bounce off his foot on a punt return,
sure,
who's a Super Bowl champion?
Sure,
we don't know. So, it seemed to snowball at that, but he still led his team right down the field. Yeah, he didn't get it complete on 3rd down because they decided to let Chris Jones play 7-on-7. But I think it's not. It looks bad now. But remember, every year, what goes up? The cap and the price of a quarterback.
I just wonder when this is going to stop, and I thought it was going to stop. I thought the buck was going to stop here.
I will agree with you on that.
Has not.
If any team had the ability to do it, it was this team.
Yes.
Because you're right. They draft so well outside of the quarterback position, which, guess what? Every team in the NFL, not named the Chiefs, have done that. Yeah. And the Chiefs have even done it.
Yeah.
I mean, we drafted Todd Blackledge in the draft where there was plenty of better options.
I was about to say, I don't know if the Chiefs really can claim that title.
They didn't do it for another, 30 years because of that.
Yes.
So it's not an easy position to evaluate. Bill Walsh says there's few that can coach and even fewer that can evaluate the quarterback position. So
it's a good call.
When you get one, you might as well pay him. Now, it can end up like Trevor Lawrence, to your point. Or Tua is getting real close to that.
Tua
might, in my position, already be there.
He's there. Tua's there. I even forgot Tua. That's another great call. Thanks, Dylan. Thanks for
He's
help.
up above $50 million.
Thanks for helping make my point.
I mean, that's insane.
Thanks for helping make my point.
I agree. I agree with your point of it shouldn't just be next in line, but sometimes that's more a CYA than actually evaluating and paying.
Let's take a break. We'll come back more right here on The Zone at Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thank you again to Adam Teicher. The interview I had with Alex Smith coming up in the next hour. Some news in the NFL. Sources, NFL to allow players to play flag football at 2028 Olympics. I want to get into this a little bit more later on in the show, but this is expected to pass. One interesting tidbit is a limit of one player per NFL team. But also if you are, for example, if, remember Louis Rizamet, if he were to have made the Chiefs roster last year, he could have gone back and played for his home country. That would not be the one player from said team. Interesting. They're going to have a whole league-wide insurance policy and a whole lot more. So I want to get into that a little bit later on with you, Dylan. Alex Smith interview coming up next. joined by former number 1 draft pick, 3-time Pro Bowler, and comeback player of the year, Alex Smith. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And this is so darn cool because after 17 surgeries, life-threatening flesh-eating bacteria, a risk of amputation. Trust me, I looked up what the actual name of the bacteria was. I was not going to make a buffoon of myself trying to pronounce it. But here you are. You're able to come back. You're able to play in an NFL game, yet here you are, and you have this great partnership right now. I would love to hear about this, phenomenal partnership that you have.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously to be on this side of it. You can see me even smile as you talk through some of that. Unfortunately, that was my life for a long, long time, and I lived it. And it was hard. And I think so oftentimes so much of the focus is on the physical of an injury, or when you're dealing with something like that, and surgeries and countless surgeries. And for me, though, I really enjoy being open and honest about my journey and my recovery, because so much of it was so much more than that, right? It was mental. And for a lot of it, a big portion of it was me, the reality of dealing with pain and trying to cope with it and move forward with my life. And again, looking back, these were such hard conversations. And so oftentimes they weren't even conversations that were had, and I can, distinctly remember being discharged from the hospital with a bag of medications, one of which was a rescue med. My wife is scared to death, as we go home, as am I, how we're going to navigate this, and deal with this. And again, for me, as I have a metal cage bolted to my leg, how am I going to sleep at night? How am I going to get up in the morning? How am I going to engage with the world as I'm dealing with this skin grafts and multiple surgeries? And again, for me, as I look back on it, the crazy part is pain is universal, right? It is such a part of the human experience, and it's so personal. And it's crazy that, anybody dealing with pain, that this has kind of been the norm in this country, that these are conversations that just aren't had, right? Because they are so hard and taboo. And I think a lot of us have heard the horror stories around some of these medications and their side effects. And it just doesn't need to be the case. So for me, just proud to partner with Vertex to one, I think to kind of break that cycle a little bit. Again, this is so universal, people dealing with pain. Again, it's not a matter of if, but when. And then two is to start having these conversations, right? You as the patient dealing with this, it is so personal to you. And again, it's okay to ask questions. There are other options out there, right? Discuss these things with your doctor, with your care team. Again, to kind of change the cycle that's been the way in pain management for so long in this country. And again, things have changed and they need to change. And again, so proud to partner with Vertex. And it was such a reality for me in my life. Again, it was years that I dealt with this in different ways in surgeries. And again, kind of, if only I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't make a lot of the same mistakes. And certainly I wish there were some of the options that are out today were around back then, because it certainly would have helped.
Yeah, I guess in the moment, when did you know it was as bad as it was? Did you know right away, where you're sitting there going, maybe I can walk this off?
No. I mean, I knew my leg was broken immediately. I think naively, broken bones aren't totally unheard of in the NFL, right? I mean, It is a reality of the NFL, and I had played a long time and been around a lot of guys with broken bones. I had never been around somebody that had a broken fib. And certainly the complexity to that. And for me, having a compound open fracture on the field, no, it set in pretty quickly. I had to have emergency surgery that night on my, on the ambulance ride to the hospital. I knew this wasn't normal, but still had no idea what was in store for me. Obviously, serious infection setting in. I went septic in the hospital and almost died. And then for a long, long time dealt with potentially amputation of my leg. So, and again, like that, I know it, for me, it was a little more public, obviously being, a quarterback and playing professional football, but it happens to everybody, right? Like life happens and everybody goes through this. And again, for me, I just enjoy, like, part of this is connecting with people. And I've connected with so many people that have dealt with trauma and pain, and again, it's part of life. And so just encouraging people to be open about this stuff, to have these conversations. Again, it just doesn't have to be this way.
So when all of this happened and you still decide, hey, I want to come back and play in the NFL, that to me is psycho. You're one of one. I'm not doing anything, but you're built different. What went through your process of trying to get back on the football field?
Yeah, the funny part about that is like no one does anything by themselves, right? Like I'm such a product of amazing teammates and teams, in a lot of different ways. And I'll never forget when I got the news 2 years later, when I finally got the news that I could play again or try to play, that is, and everything that I had been through, um, I was scared to death. Honestly, like I was scared when I got the news, right? Like, what if I go out there? What if my leg breaks again? What if the doctors are wrong, right? Like, what if I make a fool out of myself, right? Like, I had lost such a big part of my leg. I had lost so much ability permanently. And again, to go try this, like, I just thought there was such a big chance that, like, I just looked like an idiot. And all these things kind of running through my brain when I got this news. And I'll never forget, kind of just sitting and talking with my wife and her posing the question to me like, listen, like 2 years ago when you were laying in the hospital bed, when all of this terrible news was coming in, if they would have told you this was possible 2 years ago, right? Like if this was an option, you would have jumped at it, right? Like I would have. And yeah, here I am having given everything that I had gone through. It was hard for me. I was anxious. I was again having all these doubts. And again, so thankful for her to help me kind of reset in that moment, right? And like gain perspective about it. Again, here were the world's experts that were giving me the green light to attempt this. And I have this opportunity, and now I was scared of it, and I was going to turn my back on it. And so I do understand to people out there how insane it looks, to actually go back out on the field. But again, so thankful that I did follow through with it, as scared as I was. And again, I think that's also the thing. It's not like there was an absence of fear. Like it was there, it was present. It's certainly just how you deal with it, though.
Yeah. A little lighter question here. For about a 7-year stretch, everyone coming out of college football as a quarterback was either their Brett Favre or their Alex Smith. Those are the two buckets you get. You get the gunslinger.
Yeah.
You get. Well, is it kind of fun for you being like, yeah, you know what? That's pretty cool. I was an archetype for all these college players. What was your mindset there?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me as a young player, I really battled with, being the number one pick. I was 20 years old when I got drafted, and I really struggled with that. I had to try and be a quote unquote pro style quarterback. And again, I did have to fit some of these molds, like you're talking about, right? I got compared to like the guys in front of me, and I had to be like these guys, these quote unquote pocket passers. And it took me a long time. I struggled with that, and it took me a long time to really be comfortable with who I was as a quarterback and finding my own style, right, to play the position. And so it's funny to think about that getting kicked on now as a weight or a constraint on some of these guys coming out. I certainly hope they shed that and they break out of that. And again, much quicker get to their own style and being comfortable with who they are. Because again, there's so many. I think that's the cool thing about the quarterback position. There are so many ways to do it. To look at the quarterback landscape right now, and to look at like how obviously Patrick plays the position, how Lamar and Josh Allen play the position, but at the same time, you got guys like Brock Purdy that do it in a different way. Obviously, Tom Brady, Jared Goff. Like it's so cool to watch. I think, and that's why I think it's one of the most fascinating positions in all of sports, but also the most difficult. And so, enjoy that. And it's again also why right this time of year with the draft, these guys coming in that all have different skill sets. It's fun to watch their journey, right, and how they are going to find themselves as they move forward. So.
It's been pretty well documented. You were basically the best professional and best leader there was, especially for a guy like Patrick Mahomes coming out of college. We hear stories of maybe a rookie quarterback gets drafted. The veteran's like, I'm not helping him. This is my job. But yet you were there to help Patrick. I don't want to say, you take all the credit for what Patrick has become, but you were also, I think, maybe a leader in the sense that of this is what teams should do. If you have the guy who can help the guy who you draft, help that rookie quarterback, within the organization benefits. And I think your career to an extent also benefited getting that contract in Washington. What was that like for you, though? It had to be very difficult. You find your space. You're having a great season. The Chiefs are now stable. You're taking them to the playoffs after the dark times. I've been in KC a long time, so I know the dark times, but you help bring them to relevancy, and all of a sudden they draft your replacement.
For what's going on with Patrick in Kansas City. I mean, he's an unbelievable, obviously, player, but person and competitor. And so he's unique. He's a unicorn. And I think two things. Listen, we just talked about it. I was the number one overall pick. I didn't have that I played right away. I didn't have the mentor to learn from, and it sucked. It was a lot of years of trial and error, years of it, and we weren't very good. And again, it definitely beat me up and took its toll. And I remember thinking that like it didn't have to be like that. It didn't have to be like that. And so for me, again, fast forward 12, 13 years later, I'm in Kansas City, and obviously Andy, we decided to take Patrick. For me, there was a lot of empathy. I'd been the number one pick, right? I'd been the early quarterback. By the way, we don't get to say where we go, right? Like that's not how this works. Patrick didn't get to pick where he went. I didn't get to so there wasn't any animosity towards him. And I think at that point I had learned there's only 32 jobs, starting quarterback jobs in the country, right? And like regardless of whether or not Patrick was sitting right behind me, like there I was year 13. If I don't prove that I can play winning quarterback football, like I'm not going to have a job. And that's the reality. And so for me, and to do my job at the highest level, I have to have ultimate focus. So I can't be looking over my shoulder, worrying about what he's doing. And then again, he and I just hit it off. You give respect, you get respected. And like he had grown up in a locker room. Like it was immediate, right? Like that his path and potential and my path and potential were not contradictory, right? Like that's not, as much as the media was trying to make it like that. That's just not the reality of the situation. And so, and again, it wasn't like I was whispering the secrets of quarterbacking in his ear. Like he got a front row seat. And this is the other reality. I spend more time with the other quarterbacks during the season than I do with my wife and kids, right? Like that's the time that it takes and the commitment that it takes. And you, as a quarterback room, do everything together, especially in Kansas City. And so he got a front row seat to see here I was in year 13, everything that I had learned, how I was compartmentalizing being a husband and a dad, and obviously a quarterback, and all the other crap that comes with, being the face of a franchise and dealing with it, and also preparing to play games and the ups and downs of a week and winning and losing and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, he was right there with me every step of the way throughout that process. And then I think obviously as I went on to Washington, he got to take what he liked, and I've been back and multiple times. And so he certainly customized it his way at this point. There's certainly some leftovers from when I was there, but there's a lot of new as well. And so I just think, again, you look at what happened there, you look at Green Bay, the model that they've had, as it was from Brett to Aaron, and Aaron, to Jordan. So like it just can be done much better. And I think certainly those are some examples of why.
The Chiefs went out and drafted Josh Simmons. You had a great left tackle for a long time, Eric Fisher. Chiefs are trying to get that left side shored up, drafting obviously a guy who was a top 10 talent, but a very serious injury, torn patellar tendon. There's a lot of concern of players bouncing back, but again, you're an outlier. Why can't Josh Simmons? One, pain management seems to have a good place right here in Josh Simmons. But what do you make of the Chiefs trying to really shore up that left side with a guy high potential, high upside, but the injury concerns?
A couple things. First off, obviously, I mean, I think it was a concern of theirs. Right. We all saw the last season play out, and certainly through the playoffs, that offensive line is a position that they needed to prioritize. I think it's unique when you're picking at the end of the first round. Unfortunately, that's where the Chiefs have picked for a long, long time now.
I'll say fortunately.
But I think you need to be, here's a guy that was regarded as potentially a top 10 talent. And sometimes you got to take some risks. And here it was medically, and they needed to do their homework and see about his recovery. So sometimes you got to take some risk there, right, and get the reward. And so I like that. The other thing that I really like with Josh is that he also is a fellow Helix Highlander, from San Diego, which what a crazy world. It's where I went to high school. And so to see him there in Kansas City is incredibly cool. And obviously, hopefully his recovery goes really, really well and he gets back to his potential.
Yeah. Finally, before I let you go, one more time, just who you're working with, the partnership, where and why rookies need to have a pain management conversation ahead of this upcoming NFL season.
Yeah, again, proud to be partnering with Vertex Pharmaceuticals. Again, this is to encourage everybody out there, not just rookies who, may end up dealing with injuries, but everybody obviously is, as we go through life and dealing with pain. Again, one, we're all going to go through it, right? Like it is so personal to you. And then two, to go have these conversations, right? You steer the ship. You drive these conversations with your doctors and care team. It doesn't have to be taboo anymore. There are so many options out there. And for anybody dealing with it that needs, some help dealing with this stuff, go to paingameplan.com. A ton of resources on there to help anybody when times like this come along.
Alex, I really appreciate it, man.
Certainly. Thanks, man.
Thank you again to Alex Smith, former Chiefs quarterback. A lot of fun talking with Alex. Great guy, badass. The comeback that he was able to have, just always have so much admiration for Alex. I also love the fact that he talked about, I get way too much credit for Patrick Mahomes and his development here in KC. Always made me chuckle because, again, he's very, very humble, but teaching him a lot of, off the field stuff. Just always a huge Alex Smith supporter. Really, really cool, man. Just really, really cool. Again, welcome back to the Zone. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. I want to talk a little golf. I do want to talk a little about the flag football because I think that's a little interesting as well. We'll talk a lot more Chiefs again later on with Daniel Harms joining us from RGR Football at 1 o'clock. I just want to bring this up in golf because I've seen it going around on Twitter a good amount, and I think some people might have some questions if you are a golfer, maybe you're not a huge golfer, because there was talk about how Rory McIlroy's driver was pronounced non-conforming prior to PGA Championship at Quail Hollow. And then Scotty Scheffler said that his driver was ruled unplayable by USGA. This is not new. This is very, very common. The driver testing, according to Scotty Scheffler, is something that regularly happens on tour. The reason why is not for some heinous thought. It's not like steroids. It's not like corking a bat. It's not Sammy Sosa allegedly corking a bat, right? What it is when you hit the ball as hard as these guys do, when you play and hit the range as much as these guys do, the face of the driver thins. And when the face of the driver thins, you might think, is that a bad thing? No, it's actually a good thing. Thing gets hotter. Thing starts to go farther, right? So that's what it comes down to. And Scott even talked about heading into Quail Hollow, said, my driver did fail me this week. We had a feeling that was going to be coming because I've used that driver for over a year. I was fortunate for it to last that long, I felt like. One, if you're listening, your driver's probably fine if you've had it only a year. You ain't hitting the range and hitting your driver as hard or as often as Scotty. But that is a real thing, and they're not trying to get a competitive advantage. It's just the face gets hot, and they test for this on the tour. I know Scheffler and Xander Schauffele had some thoughts afterwards saying we should just do this more often, be more robust in the way that they test the driver. They're only going to test a third of the field, it looks like, at times. They only tested 50 guys. I don't know your thoughts, Dylan, if you have any thoughts at all. I just think that it's interesting. I know some people were talking about Rory's performance at the Masters saying, should it be banned because of the drive? No, it could be one day that it shifts. It could be one strike that it shifts from conforming to non-conforming. But also, I feel like this means that you should keep your driver forever. Gets hotter, baby. It gets hotter. Don't throw away that driver, Dylan.
I won't. It won't help me at all golfing, but I do know that now. I learned something today.
So that was potentially gonna be my learn, but I'd already known that.
I didn't.
So I
had no idea.
I knew it because we actually have a friend who we make fun of all the time. He hits a 2001 Titleist 3-wood that his dad used before him. He's a good golfer. He hits his 3-wood farther than any of us hit driver by a good. Now he smashes the ball. But we're talking occasionally running up on 3 bills, 280. I'm talking he smashes a thing, and we've said it's because the face of the 3-wood is too hot. We said this is illegal, and then this all came out, and Scott thought, his name's Scott too. If your name's Scott, you're probably going to be a good golfer. Just the rules. I don't make them, just enforce them. And he thought we were all kidding. So he learned something about that he thought we were kidding the whole time about that. I'm like, yeah, we're not going to pop you for it, man. We're playing for fun, but like, your 3-wood's non-conforming, so USGA. I'm playing French Lick soon in a tournament. I don't actually, he's on my team. Nope. USGA don't come and do it. Scott's fine. But next year, if I'm not
dumped that.
If I'm not on his team, come test him. That's all I'm saying. If you ever lose to one of your friends or your friend's out driving you, ask him about his driver. How long has he had it? Get the USG out there. Pop him. That's all I'm saying, Dylan. All I'm saying. All right, do you want to get into the NFL allowing players to play flag football at the 2028 Olympics? First and foremost, Dylan, let's start here. Do you like this?
Yes, I do. I think that they are seeing what the Four Nations did for hockey and what baseball kind of drops the ball, not to be punny here, but drops the ball on not letting their players participate in the Olympics because it's mid-season, so I can understand.
Yeah.
But I think that they're capitalizing on that because you can not only grow the game this way, but also dominate if we're actually trying to use our best football players versus just flag football players.
And that's a very good point that you brought up as far as timing, because the timing of the Olympics takes place from July 14th, 2028 to July 30th.
That's basically the dead time.
It's at worst, you miss the start of training camp at worst.
Exactly. And most of them do if they're in a contract year. So, you know, it's like if they're veterans and they're good enough and they're playing on the Olympic team, they typically may be okay missing that first week of training camp.
Here are some rules and regulations for the proposed, which again, this is supposedly going to pass. They need 24 of 32 team owners to approve this. It does look like, according to most sources, that this is expected to pass. Permission for any player under NFL contract to participate in tryouts. So I wonder if voids some contracts. I don't know how that would work, if there's any a lot of contracts have special things written in. What was it? Patrick couldn't play basketball. No jet skis, no skiing. A lot of clauses. I wonder how that affects any clause. Something to keep in mind. A limit of one player per NFL team on each national team participating. So, for example, the Chiefs couldn't have both, let's say, Rashee Rice and Patrick Mahomes on Team USA.
That's dumb.
Only one.
Why?
Only one.
Is that the NFL or the Olympic Committee suggesting that rule?
I would assume the NFL.
Okay.
I will point this out if, for example, you know, I brought up Luis Rizamet earlier. Let's go Eagles. Mulata. Because he could play for Australia, and let's say Jalen Hurts could play for USA. That's different because it's different countries. That's international.
So you can't have Jalen Carter and Saquon Barkley.
Correct, because that'd be two Americans.
Two Eagles.
Well, two Eagles, two
Eagle
Americans, yeah.
That's ridiculous. Why would you do that? That has to be.
I
that
assume
seems like the Olympic Committee trying to make it fair. Because if we really wanted to put, because those are two players that are going to be on. If we're picking the best players, I guess you don't really need Jalen Carter. So that's a bad example.
But Saquon, for example, or
and,
A.J. Brown.
Sure, perfect.
Yeah,
can't do it. Trying to think of a defensive.
Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of like a Fred Warner, because Cooper DeJean, he's great, but he's not like the best cornerback we could pick.
Sure.
Zach Bond. Okay. Lamar Jackson and Roquan Smith.
Yeah.
So we can't use those two players because we'd have to pick. But that's ridiculous. That does seem like the Olympic Committee went to the NFL and suggested we put this in to vote on because we don't want to have 40-0, championship gold medal matches.
Sure. And so that's what it looks like. So I do wonder if, with baseball, for example, guys who are never born in other countries, who are born in America, can still play for other countries. You know how it kind of goes through. I know that's more World Baseball Classic than Olympics, but I do wonder how that's going to take place in the NFL for flag football. Like, can you say, hey, no, I want to play for Spain, even though you've always been American, you've been born in the USA, all that stuff. I wonder what the regulations are going to be like. I just think that's interesting, though, Dylan. So only one player per NFL team on each national team participating.
I would like to know why of that one.
Well, I'd assume part of it's the NFL, the teams not wanting half your team gone for the potential of injury.
Yeah, I mean,
so
you're okay with
strong.
One. So we're okay with your best one then.
1 versus 5.
But I'm saying, though, you're okay then with the best player we can pick on your team being.
I get it, but it's either 1 versus 3, 1 versus 5.
Sure, I get it. I get it, but also I don't get it.
And I also wonder, too, if the NFL is saying that way it gives every team an opportunity to get a guy on a team.
Yeah,
so that way you
just
watch.
Seems all-star game,
100%
baseball-ish, but
100%. I don't disagree with you. I'm just this is the thought process that I would say if I was an owner and I'm trying to talk about my team. If I'm the Panthers, seriously, you're sitting here going, yeah, come on.
Okay.
We want to try and get one of our guys in.
I know, but this is, okay.
I don't disagree with
no,
you.
No, I
I'm
know
not
you
on
don't.
that side.
No, I agree. I'm just pointing out the fact that, okay, so the Olympics is now everybody gets a trophy and everyone needs to participate.
The opposite of what the Olympics is supposed to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I think that rule is ridiculous.
There'll be a purchase of league-wide insurance policies to provide injury protection for any player injured while participating in an authorized flag football activity related to the Olympics. That makes sense. I'm sure the NFL and the teams, the owners, were going to push hard for that. Also, a salary cap credit for any player who's injured. Let's say Saquon, right? Saquon Barkley gets injured. Well, then the Eagles would get a salary cap credit for any player who's injured. Makes it tough that late in the season. Who are you going to bring in? Better than nothing, I guess. But still, for example, it's an ACL. Guy's out for the year. Cut downs. Maybe you can pick up someone else and use some of that money to recoup something. So, makes sense, but...
Was Anthony Davis on the Olympic team? Yes. That's an easy question, right?
I would sure assume so.
So, then we couldn't have had LeBron on the same team. By the rules that we're setting for our football team, we then would not be allowed to have LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the same team.
Correct, yes.
So, that's why that's dumb. But... Anyway, to your next point.
I don't disagree with you.
No, I agree. I'm just continuing
Dylan, I
to
feel
point
like
out.
You're taking this out on me. I agree with you.
I'm more just tossing and lobbing reasons why that should be removed.
Oh, look, I'm a messenger. Yeah. Oh, look, I'm getting shot by Dylan. Wow, Dylan.
Sorry.
You shot the messenger.
Didn't mean to.
Okay. Okay, expectation that Olympic flag football teams will establish medical staffs. Yeah. And then a schedule that does not unreasonably conflict with an NFL players' league and club commitments, which we talked about.
Training camp.
At
Maybe
worst, it's the...
But then would the league just push it back? Like, would the league just say, okay, the earliest you can start this year is this day?
Sure. July 30th is the end.
Or maybe if you don't have a player in it, then we get a head start on the season. That might just be the advantage you get not getting a player on the Olympic team, but I don't know. That seems easily,
I'm
easy to work around.
Excited about this, by the way.
I agree.
I don't know if many people care.
I'm saying the Four Nations really got people into hockey right in the middle of the hockey season. It was like a preview of playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But this can almost be good because they're trying to grow flag football and make it a high school sport. So, that girls and boys can participate in a different form of football. Like, this would also be a massive way to grow that because you can see every day there's a new ownership announcement of a city that already has an NFL team's flag football team in the future. So this could be a massive way to grow it, and it's in America. I think it'll be fun.
I like what Aaron Jones said, too. Aaron Jones, running back for the Vikings now, said, flag football players may be upset at me for this, but yes, I absolutely love it. Every other sport gets an opportunity to win a gold medal, and if you're not serving your country in the military, I feel like that's our highest honor you can represent your country in. And so these guys want to represent their country.
Right.
That's really cool by Aaron Jones, by the way.
I agree. That's the mentality of these players, so I don't know, back to the point that we agree on. Let's not hamstring them. Let's let them all play. There's no rules on roster. There needs to be rules on injuries and how we handle that and how, scheduling works. But I don't think you should be using the all-star method that baseball uses where every team has to have a guy. Or you only get to get one guy from your team. If you want to use two people, that should be up to you. And then if you do want to mitigate the risk of injury, then you are allowed to decide.
Sure. I don't see where he says this, but according to ESPN, Patrick Mahomes has expressed interest.
Well, the quarterback position member, remember that guy last year?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
He said that he's better than Patrick Mahomes. Or he's more, what did he say? Something to the effect that he's better suited for flag football than
Which
Patrick.
I wonder if there is something to that.
No. You don't think Patrick Mahomes could learn in half a day?
Well, I think
all the
Lamar, like
rules
if we've all
of
played
flag
flag
football,
football, like
he'd
Lamar,
be
it feels like Lamar would be like the
absolutely.
guy.
I still think Patrick would be great just because of the accuracy as well.
Sure, no, 100%. But you're right. I wonder if, and I do.
I do think your top three is Lamar, Pat, and Josh Allen.
Yeah,
And it's crazy that there's going to be guys holding a clipboard.
But I do find it. I wonder. Like even defensively, like grabbing. I know they can learn, but grabbing flags there's something to it, right?
Right.
I do wonder how many will be NFL players versus how many of.
It will be interesting to see that.
Like, what's the breakdown?
Yeah.
Is it all NFL?
Are there positions that are specific to flag football, which I don't think there would be, but who knows?
Like, is it 80% flag football guys and a smattering of?
Are the coaches former flag football people, or are they NFL coaches?
Yes. Is there going to be a rift and a rivalry? Which, by the way, that'd be even funnier. Like, I don't think flag football folks want to fight. You know, like DK Metcalf, that feels like a losing battle.
Do you think it'd be better as real football? Like, do you think we're just getting flag football because that's the closest we can get these other countries to compete with our level of football?
Yeah, well, and that's another situation where.
Because there's no way we could field enough teams with a full roster. But it would be a lot cooler when they're putting the gold medals, because I'm just going to assume we're winning gold.
Well, I mean, because who else would
and
play?
we're in like
Canada?
a full United States, like pads, helmet, and everything. But
Australia, because they have rugby, so you have some people.
Australian rules football as well.
But like, there's not many. Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you had NFL Europa for a little bit.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be. I don't think it'd
you
be
wouldn't have enough.
fair nor fun.
Right. It's easier to get people ready to play flag football than actual contact, high speed football.
Yeah. All I know is this is gonna be electric.
Yeah.
This is gonna be awesome.
It'll just be weird seeing Pat or Lamar or AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill like in like a USA T-shirt and shorts with flags around.
Hear me out.
It would look better if we were in full pads.
You know who was great in the T-shirt shorts competition?
Who?
You know who I'm thinking of. Hop on, baby, the train. Woo, woo! Justin Ross hype train. Round 7.
Yeah, you're right. We could just go and look at all the rookie minicamp and training camp videos and figure out who would be good at flag football.
Who looked good in the shirts and shorts comp?
We need Carl Peterson to evaluate.
Carl Peterson, you think?
Yeah, he loves it. It's his favorite.
Oh, man. I think we're onto something here now. All the guys who were like John Ross, Justin Ross, your last name's Ross, congratulations, you have a good chance. Darius Hayward Bay, bring him back. Remember him? This is what you need. Shirts and shorts comp. This is for you.
Would Dante Hall ever get tackled in flag football?
In his prime, no.
That's what I'm thinking.
Like in his prime, him and Devin Hester.
I'm trying to go throughout history and just all the different players that were hard to tackle when there were really no rules of getting a guy on the ground versus like having to reach for a flag. And
3 guys come to mind immediately. Dante Hall, Devin Hester, Ted Ginn Jr.
Yeah. It's not bad.
DeAnthony Thomas would thrive.
Maybe Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, Deshaun.
Shady McCoy.
DeAnthony Thomas and Dexter McCluster right now are just punching sand because this is for them.
Yep.
I do wonder how this breakdown's going to work. Like, I know we talked about like A.J. Brown, but do you want that or do you want just like a super fast
That's what I'm saying. You want
guy?
speed, right?
Yeah, I thought so.
So you'd rather have Devonta Smith.
I think so. You know what? I'm in. I thought when this originally came out, I was like, I don't know. I don't really care that much. It's fine.
That's why it's smart on the NFL to allow their players to play. I don't think you should hamstring it. We've already been over that ad nauseum at this point in one segment. But I am really just about the fact that they are seeing what Four Nations did for hockey, and they're saying, well, that is such a good idea, not only to grow the game globally, but also make people interested in our sport outside of the season.
Yes.
And now the Four Nations was in season, but for in-season hockey, most people are turning it on in the playoffs. They're not really invested in hockey, especially in this town without a professional team in the month of whenever that was. I think that was January, maybe.
Four Nations hockey.
Yeah.
I think that was...
It was the middle of the winter, essentially.
It was the start of 25. Well, it'd be cool if we had...
Like a supercomputer at our fingertips, yeah.
Four Nations. That was February 2025.
Yeah.
Good call.
So right in the middle of not only football's highest the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But, not really a big time of hockey. They were able to garner a ton of interest through having.
I watched it.
I know. I mean, I love hockey. It's basically like took the playoffs and put them right in the middle of the season, where this is kind of taking, a less contact version of the playoffs, where all your favorite players are going to be on one team instead of Bengals Chiefs or Chiefs Bills. Or,
how
Chiefs,
will
Eagles.
the Bengals and the Chiefs not players,
Right.
player?
I mean, it's
get along.
Right. It's like soccer.
Patrick doesn't even look at Jamar Chase.
It's like Steve Kerr and Jason Tatum.
That's a
I mean,
good call.
it'll be very interesting. I
Hey,
believe.
looking back now, Steve Kerr knew. Steve Kerr knew that Jason Tatum was going to choke, and he didn't have it in him.
Well, I don't think Jason Tatum choked. I think he, had a horrific.
I forgot about the injury. Yeah, he had the injury first. Yeah, my bad.
But
I forgot about the injury too.
yeah,
But he wasn't great before the injury in the playoffs.
he only had 40 points in Game 3.
Hey, Peyton Pritchard had himself a 30-point game in there too.
I think this Knicks dodged a bullet of giving up a 2-0 lead with that Achilles.
Yeah, I think you're right. Going to talk some NBA tomorrow. Going to talk some NBA. Got a Rylan Stiles OKC Thunder. He's going to come on, give us a little breakdown of the NBA matchup, especially talking OKC. We'll take a break, come back to the Zone. Sports Radio 810 WHB. Welcome back to the Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. Daniel Harms of RGR Football joining us at 1 o'clock, talking more Chiefs with Harms. Dylan, get excited. People are going to learn more about you, okay? People know too much about me and Jason. They know way too much about Jason and myself. They don't care about us. You're mysterious back there, okay? You're a magic man. We're gonna learn about you next hour. Yeah, baby. Around 1:30ish. Playing a game with Dylan called This or That.
I don't know if the ratings could be higher at this station, man. Might short circuit like the FanDuel connection when the Royals had a home run.
Good pull. They're fun questions. It's this or that. We had a bed that you and I made on ESPN KC together for this. We had a whole thing. And now we're doing it with you. Get excited. 1:30ish. This or that. Dylan. I'm excited to talk to Harms. A lot I want to get into. I want to get his thoughts on the Jalen Moore situation in regards to Josh Simmons, because we heard what Adam Teicher had to say. He basically said that he thinks Josh Simmons is plan A, with Jalen Moore being plan B. I don't know if Harms feels the same way or if he agrees with me. Harms up next. Welcome back to The Zone. Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, joined now Daniel Harms, film analyst for RGR. Harms, how are you?
I'm doing all right, man. It's a Wednesday. Hopefully everyone there is.
It's a Wednesday. Where are you living? You a day ahead of us?
Apparently, right? I feel like today's Wednesday. That's how my week is going, guys. That is exactly how it feels. I've run around doing everything. The storms yesterday were, changing plans. So, yes, my week currently feels like it's Wednesday. That's how I'm doing.
You got that going for you, which is nice. Hey, just you're going to take Friday off. You have a long weekend coming up. It's a short week for you then.
It is. It actually is a short week. You got a 4-day weekend coming up for my wife, so it's almost like I won't have to deal with any of that.
Hey, congratulations. Congrats. I want to ask you the most important question because I had fun with Adam Teicher. He was on earlier with this question. We saw it differently. I said, how bad would Jalen Moore have to play to see Josh Simmons this year? And he said, that's not the question to me. He goes, if the knee is healthy and Josh Simmons is ready to go, he thinks Josh Simmons is plan A. I don't know where you landed on this conversation or what your thoughts would be, but I guess that surprised me.
I think that it would be surprising if he was plan A considering recovery. Again, we don't know what's going to happen, and obviously you don't know throughout the draft who's going to end up falling, and it did feel like the Chiefs wanted to go out and at least give themselves an option at left tackle. And now we know $15 million, it's $20 million guaranteed for a tackle over the next 2 seasons isn't a whole lot in the grand scheme of things for a guy with 5 career starts, but it's still more money than you'd probably expect for somebody that would be plan B in any given situation. So I think we don't want to throw out some money issues, right? We don't want to necessarily always say the money, it tells you everything, but it does give you at least some inclination to the fact that the Chiefs are probably very comfortable with him starting at left tackle to begin the season. I would think that someone who, yes, he had an injury towards the end of the season last year as well. I would imagine, unless we haven't heard anything about the recovery process in any way, shape, or form with Jalen Moore, but I expect him to be ready to go. And unless things go off the rails, where he's just basically unplayable, I would imagine that they would want Josh Simmons to get his feet fully under him, even through the rest of the preseason into the beginning parts of the regular season, before saying, yeah, he's clearly the guy we want to start. Unless, like we've seen, unless Josh Simmons comes in, he has zero ill effects from the surgery, from the preparation, from the rehab, and he is the clear, unquestioned best tackle in training camp. That is the only situation I think that he starts the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's more or less where I'm at as well. How good would Jalen Moore have to be to keep Josh Simmons from pushing him out of that spot?
He'd have to be heads and tails above what he played last year. He'd have to be on that trek where the Chiefs have estimated him getting better over the next couple of seasons, because I watched the tape from last year. I thought he was probably an average to just above average left tackle. He'd have to be a good to borderline, good plus left tackle for them to hold off playing Josh Simmons if he's healthy and ready to go. So he'd have to play better than he ever has in his career, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm with you. I think the future, in let's just say 2026, I think the line looks like Josh Simmons left tackle, Jalen Moore at right tackle. Do you see that playing out as well? Do you think the Chiefs would move on from Jalen Moore? I mean, the contract's large, obviously, $30 million over 2 years, but over 21.94, I believe, was guaranteed. So, moving on from that, yeah, it saves you about, $8 million. But, the contract itself is 15 basically for 2026. If he's good and you can play him at right tackle, makes sense for at least 1 year to figure out what to do post Juwan Taylor. Where do you land on the O-line hierarchy breaking down going forward?
Actually, you and I have talked about this quite a lot on the Bleacher Report app where we do our shows Tuesdays and Fridays, where I actually had this idea in my head the entire time when we started to get inklings that the Chiefs might be looking at Josh Simmons in the draft, saying, well, if the plan is to draft Josh Simmons, then in year 2, Jalen Moore becomes your starting right tackle, and I think he's a better right tackle fit than he is a left tackle fit in this offense. And honestly, if you can get him on an extension after this year, to play right tackle for the next 3 or 4 years, where it's not a $20+ million contract. It's a win, especially because I think he's a better fit there and he'll play better at right tackle. So this could be just like a testing waters point where you're seeing how he's going to play and then kind of try to project that forward with an extension of a year or two just to have your right tackle of the future. And then you can put Josh Simmons at left tackle and say, look, we have our bookends now, and we can kind of figure that out as it goes along. So it does kind of feel like the plan was in place for the Chiefs to move on from Jawan Taylor after 2025, and Jalen Moore with his 3-year contract, it being a 2-year contract with the $21 million guaranteed. That is the necessary situation where they have the starters for now, but they also have a plan of attack for the future. And with Josh Simmons being the left tackle of the future, you can plug Jalen Moore in there. He probably plays better, and I think that the offensive line consistency will just be better.
Yeah. Brock Purdy. I want to ask you about Brock Purdy and get your thoughts here, because I've just been perpetually surprised, shocked that the 49ers of all teams would make this move. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Of all teams that feel like they can understand and move on from overpaying a above average quarterback, but I think above average is as far as I will go. The Niners seem like they'd be the team to stop that trend, yet they weren't, and that $50+ million a year is going to Brock Purdy. How surprised were you that the Niners did this?
I think the only reason I was a little surprised is the amount of money. It felt like they would pay him. I didn't know that it was going to be as much as they ended up paying Brock Purdy, simply because, like you said, I don't think he's a guy who is going to consistently elevate that offense when the time requires it, when it's uncomfortable for him, when he's got to do more than just pick apart zone coverage like he did, to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, where they've changed and his play changed. I know it was a couple years ago now, but his style of play is what it is. His physical ability is what it is. I think what this comes down to is being more comfortable with the devil you know rather than the devil you don't know. And you don't want to always be in the rookie quarterback market or the veteran quarterback market. At least with this and the cap space continuing to go up year after year, the 49ers now have the guy that runs the ship the way that Kyle Shanahan wants. And for them, that was more than enough comfort level to pay him what he wanted. And again, you're only as worth as much as the team is willing to pay you. And apparently the 49ers were the team. I don't think anybody else is going to pay him that much money. But when you think about what Kyle Shanahan wants, a quarterback that's not going to question, that isn't going to do anything that he doesn't want done, I think it makes a lot more sense as we start to see the picture unfold in San Francisco of why he is the guy for them. I don't think Brock Purdy is going to be pushing back a ton with Kyle Shanahan in the room. Like, he's going to execute the offense the way he wants. So, yes, I wouldn't have paid Brock Purdy myself. I am not an NFL GM. But I think what we see from Brock Purdy is that he's a fine quarterback to operate that offense. But we will see, I think, this year if he can sustain some of the, I guess, gunslinger-esque moments he had last year, where I think he played better than his actual ability. He kind of raised himself last year when everything around him was getting injured and the offense was just not what it was. We'll see if he can sustain that level of play this year if everything goes on track with, Brandon Ayuk not being able to play probably as well as you'd want him coming off the injury. You don't have Deebo Samuel anymore. We'll see what Christian McCaffrey is after his injury. And then, the offensive line still wasn't as addressed as they probably wanted to. You see what Trent Williams still has. Overall, it's a gamble, but I think one that it makes sense for the 49ers simply because he operates the offense the way that Kyle Shanahan wants.
Daniel Holmes, film analyst for RGR Football, is our guest. You've talked about this a little bit already, but you think that Rashee Rice isn't going to get suspended this year. Do you still feel like that, and why?
I do, and I've done a little. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take anything I say for fact.
Daniel, not a GM and not a lawyer, Harms.
That's right. I'm over here talking like I'm both of these things, but out of the corner of my mouth, so take it with a grain of salt. But I've seen some of the investigative work done by other lawyers, and Drew Davenport, who works for Football Guys, but is a lawyer and actually goes through the process, much like our own Seth Kaiser that covers the Chiefs for his Substack. You kind of have to take some of these with an understanding that things aren't moving in the Rashee Rice case. There has been zero movement or from wherever his case is from the time it was brought up last year. There's been zero movement, and this happens a lot with not just regular courts, but seemingly in Texas, this happens a lot more with some of the volumes of cases. So at least from what we've learned right now, which is literally nothing since it was brought up last year and it happened last year, I would imagine unless something critically and drastically changes over the next few months, there will be nothing to suspend Rashee Rice for yet until we get more evidence, more things brought forward, and as the case continues on. So I'm currently under the assumption that he doesn't get suspended, if at all, until 2026.
Okay. And what's he look like this year for KC? I mean, he was a yak monster.
Yeah.
I mean, just his yak ability, yards after catch, is just insane. Any concern of that taking a step back after the injury, or do you think he'll be fine? I know it's really tough to tell right now, but just historically speaking, from explosive players who have these type of injuries, it's at least fair to wonder.
Yeah, I think what we've seen from him, just based off of, again, workouts are workouts, so we don't want to read too much into them, but his movement looks good. It doesn't look hampered. He looks really relatively close to what he did coming into training camp last year with the explosive movements. The change of direction is what you really want to focus on, and while he's doing his drills and the footwork and the cone drills, you don't see a labored movement really in there. And again, we'll see what happens when the pads come on, when he starts getting hit in training camp, how that's going to come forward. But all accounts look like he's going to be ready to play the season, at least to probably closer to 80, 85, maybe 90% of what he was last year. So I'm expecting still a smaller ramp up for the Chiefs. They don't want to, and that's why I know we're kind of going off the topic here, but why I'm still hesitant to say that Josh Simmons is plan A. I feel like the Chiefs are in a position where they have wide receivers and tackles that they can just let the rehab stuff take course. They don't, and the Chiefs, we've seen it with their offense. They're far more vanilla early in the season, wanting to wait until the end of November and December to really showcase what they're going to do. And it feels like if you want to put too much on Rashee Rice or too much on Josh Simmons early in the season, that doesn't make a lot of sense for the plans of how the Chiefs have taken this last 3 or 4 years. So for Rashee Rice, I still expect him to play, but I think you'll see maybe more Hollywood Brown with the ball in that regard. Even Xavier Worthy, Jalen Royals, even Juju Smith-Schuster maybe more involved in that regard early on, and then let him ramp up throughout the rest of the season and see what he can do.
Yeah, let's go to Hollywood Brown really quickly. X Factor. It's kind of a guy I'm tabbing. An X Factor in a good or bad way. I just don't know what to expect from him. I mean, you saw what he looked like when he was healthy, and he was a almost favorite target of Patrick. The target share was just absurd. Injuries, it feels like, always going to be a concern with Hollywood, which is why the variance can be so high. But it did feel like he fit the offense very, very well. Now, that's obviously without Rashee Rice in there. What are expectations for Hollywood Brown heading into 2025?
I think they should be relatively high, because not just because they had high expectations for him before he got hurt, but because of exactly the first game back, you saw the connection, you saw the image, you saw how it was going to fit in this offense, and he is a perfect fit. And with the rest of the wide receivers, how they all work together, they can all play each other's role to an extent. Obviously, no one can be the Xavier Worthy speed guy, but they can all stretch the field to their own extent. They can do the yards after catch stuff. We've seen Hollywood Brown be a guy over the middle of the field that can find those soft spots like Rashee Rice can. They can transition to yards after catch. Feels like they want to create this offense that anybody can play any role, and you don't really know what's going to happen with that. And Hollywood Brown, again, experience. He still has speed. The injuries have taken a little bit of that explosiveness, but it's not prevented them from using him as a decoy on some. We saw that in the Super Bowl where he goes from right to left side of the safety, and Xavier goes from left to right side of the safety and forces them to pick. That's something that we're going to see a lot more of this year too. And I think more than not, those safeties are going to go with Xavier Worthy and leave Hollywood Brown one-on-one on those crossing routes down the middle of the field. And that's where you might see him be more explosive. So as long as he's healthy, again, that is always the caveat, he's going to have his mark on this offense. And it is a really seamless fit, and it wouldn't surprise me if he just has a very consistently good year helping the Chiefs move the chains and develops that chemistry with Patrick Mahomes even more.
All three guys are healthy. Rice, Worthy, Brown, they all play every single game this year. What's the pecking order look like? What's the target share look like? How do you think the breakdown ends up going between those three guys?
Yeah, that's the thing. It feels like to me that Rashee Rice, if he's fully healthy, is the heir apparent to what Travis Kelce does. Obviously, he's not a tight end, but we've seen that type of the choice routes, the stops over the middle of the field to transition to yards after catch. It feels like he was the guy that was going to take more off the plate of Travis last year. Then he got hurt, and we saw how that ended up happening. So the pecking order for me is probably going to go with Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and then Hollywood Brown, but it's not going to be like a drastic amount. I think those three guys are going to get a good chunk of the work. We'll see what happens with Travis in his final year, but that seems to me to be how they want to transition, and hopefully Travis can help just take some attention from the defense so those three guys continue to just kind of carve their way through. But I do expect Rashee Rice to still be at the top. I don't think you can keep the ball out of a guy like Xavier Worthy's hands as much as you want to, so they might be 1 and 2, and then maybe Travis, and then maybe Hollywood. But in terms of those three, I expect Hollywood to be at the back, but it could be any given game too, where you see him have the target share or Xavier have the target share. But over the course of the season, I do think that Rashee Rice gets the most of that.
Daniel Holmes, film analyst for RGR Football, is our guest. With the tush push being proposed for bannage, what do you make of this? Because I have been a proponent of just because the Eagles are really good at the tush push doesn't mean that you have to ban it. Do I like it? No. Do I enjoy watching it? No. Do I like the Eagles? Hell no. But end of the day, I can't find a legitimate reason to ban the tush push. Where do you land on that argument?
There's no reason to ban something that one team is just really, really good at. Like that. I don't really understand any of that. If you give some of these teams reason to ban a play just because of how good a team is, and I know that the Packers have brought up the quote-unquote injury topic of it, but there's no data to suggest that it's bad for injuries. Maybe over time that will change, but as of now, we have nothing to say definitively that this causes more injuries or things like that. So I'm really not as big of a proponent from just taking something away because one team is really good at it. We've seen the Bills try to do it. They couldn't figure it out. The Chiefs stopped them nearly every single time in the postseason about trying to do that. So I really don't understand, outside of sheer jealousy, that the Eagles are just so good at it. If you don't want them to do it, stop letting them get the 4th and 1 and 3rd and 1. Just you got to be better in those 3rd and maybe medium situations, and then 2nd and long, where you can't let them get to 3rd and 4 and 3rd and 3, where all they need is 2 yards, and they're just going to run the football and then do it again. It's better. It's got to be about better defensive management to prevent that from happening. So banning something just because a team is really, really good at it it rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah. Let's talk about the AFC West overall. Daniel Harms, of course, is our guest. Let's talk about each of the 3 teams in the AFC West not named Kansas City. Let's start with the Raiders. I've talked about how I love their offseason moves. I liked their draft. I love them bringing in Pete Carroll. I don't think they're going to be good, but I think they're going to be fine. They needed to right the ship because I think that they were taking on water and they kept just turning a blind eye. They eventually said, we got to bail. We got to get this water out of here. So they did. They bring in Pete Carroll. They bring in Geno Smith. They're trying to keep this thing afloat now. What do you make of the Raiders' offseason overall so far?
I think that they're on the right path to becoming at least a better team, right? We know Tom Brady is back there behind the scenes, probably pulling most of the levers, right? He is able to do that because he's got more pull than most people in his position will have in an organization. So you understand that, at least from a fundamental position, Pete Carroll is not the coach of the future. This seems to be a reset button to hit the coach in a few years. Like, Pete Carroll knows how to go through this process of getting the guys that you want in the building, and that suggests nothing. I mean, for me, you bring in a guy like Geno Smith, Ashton Genty, Jack Besh, you already have Jacoby Myers there. Like, it feels like the growth of this organization from a culture standpoint is already in a really good spot, much better than it was in the previous seasons. So you see that from a development standpoint. And honestly, they're going to, like you said, I don't expect them to be like an average football team, maybe just below average. It wouldn't shock me if they won 8 games this year, just because I do think that culture resetting, we've seen that kind of transition to other teams, especially because I'm a big Geno Smith guy. I love Geno Smith. I think he's a very good NFL quarterback, which is crazy to talk about after what his career started in. So there's a good spot there. They're going to have a decent rushing attack with Ashton Genty, and then you actually have a decent 1-2 punch there with Raheem Mostert, who's now in Las Vegas. So that his explosiveness with Ashton Genty makes a lot of sense. And then I think that the Brock Bowers of it all is probably going to be a pain in the side of NFL defenses for a long time. The defense is still going to take some time. They have some really good fundamental pieces with Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, but they bring in some guys that are trying to find their way, like Devin White. Like he's just never been able to sustain outside of the Buccaneers. So I like what they're doing from a structural standpoint. We'll see how much it impacts this year, but it does feel like they brought in Pete Carroll to reset the organization for 2 to 3 years down the road to where they get to a different head coach.
Daniel Holmes is our guest. Going to the Broncos now. I liken him to the Royals of the NFL, where they're just going to be really good defensively. They might not score a ton, but they're going to try and play smart, sound football. Obviously, their first-round draft pick, Barron, just getting better in the secondary. I liked a couple of the other picks as well. Savion Jones, edge from LSU, as well as Q Robinson, really focusing on bolstering that defense. They did go RB in the second round, R.J. Harvey. A little surprising of where he went. And then Pat Bryant, wide receiver, in the third. Bo Nix obviously had a really nice rookie year. Sean Payton, I know Dylan's going to be thrilled to hear that. I think Sean Payton did a really good job last year overall. Give credit where credit is due. What do you make of this Broncos team, their offseason, what they're going to look like in 2025?
I actually think the Broncos are going to be the second best team in the AFC West, in large part because of what Sean Payton's done. And I was very outspoken about how I didn't think he was going to be able to do very much. I thought he reached for Bo Nix. And when you go back and you watch Bo, there are some obvious, I guess, misgivings with his game. I still think that he's a largely inaccurate when it comes to ball placement. There's a difference between accuracy and ball placement for me. You put the ball in positions that are less advantageous for your wide receivers, but they drafted Pat Bryant and you pair him with Courtland Sutton, bigger receivers that have better catch radiuses that can help mitigate some of those concerns. You talk about R.J. Harvey, again, surprise. I don't think that I didn't think he was a day 2 player, but you understand the construction of what they want to do. They want to run the football. The offensive line last year was the second best pass protecting unit in the NFL, so you hope they can keep that up. And then at the end of the day, you're just trying to protect Bo Nix and let him be the risk-averse quarterback that he is to distribute the football. So on the defense side, I think it's going to be a top 3 defense in the NFL. I think that's how good they can be. They got even better this offseason, bringing in Drake Greenlaw. I know he's suffered that injury in the offseason, but all optimistic on the front that he's going to be fine for the regular season. They bring in Talanoa Hufanga, who, again, is going to be a fantastic strong safety, the box player for them. We saw that with the 49ers. I think that he is a perfect fit in this defense. And then you mentioned Jahdae Barron, where that feels like a direct attack on Xavier Worthy, right? You practiced with this guy for 3 years-ish, and so we're going to draft you. Obviously, you're a really good football player. You're really smart. You fit in this defense, but we want to know more about what makes Xavier Worthy tick a little bit, though. So you have twofold on that situation. But overall, I think that this could be a top 3 defense in the NFL, and then all they need is for that offense to get marginally better than it was last year, and they could be a legitimately good AFC team this year.
Yeah. Be careful, Daniel. If you are right about the Broncos, then everyone that was wrong will just say you love them a lot and make fun of you for liking Sean Payton to cover the fact that they were wrong.
I don't even like Sean Payton. I really don't. I don't like him.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We're far enough down the road where that's only me that takes that shrapnel. So
it's a shot. Don't worry. It's a shot at me. I did not think it was going to work.
You weren't the only one
in Denver, and Dylan, through the hard times, has stuck by Sean Payton's side, even at the Russell Wilson years. And I have to give Dylan Michaels a ton of credit for sticking with having gumption to stick with his. I like that he's playing.
No, that's big of you to give me credit. I appreciate that.
Rare credit to me for giving you credit. Honestly, Dylan, credit to me for giving you credit. I love that you had to play yourself the sounder of clapping. That was real nice touch there, Dylan. But no, give you credit because you didn't nail that one. You stuck by Sean Payton's side. I don't know why you love Sean Payton so much, but
Just keep proving my point.
All right, let's get to the Chargers. I actually liked Amari Hampton because I think it makes a lot of sense with their offense with Harbaugh. They were very effective when they had J.K. Dobbins running the ball early in the year prior to injury. That was when they looked their best. I really like Trey Harris as well, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, to pair with Ladd McConkey. They brought back Mike Williams. He's not been good in his previous couple stops, but feels like anytime he's in LA, you at least have to keep an eye on him. What do you make of the Chargers overall and what they have done? Because I loved their first 2 draft picks.
Yeah, I think that their offense is going to be very good. And Amari Hampton, like you said, it makes a lot of sense for what they want to do. You bring in Najee Harris to kind of have that veteran in the room, but Amari is going to be the guy for the most part, and it makes sense. You give one break, and this is going to be a team that just grinds down teams. With Najee Harris and Amari Hampton, that's what they want to do. And their wide receiver room makes sense. Even the selection of Oronde Gadsden in the 5th round for their tight end, they don't really have a true receiving tight end on the roster. Will Dissly was kind of forced into that role last year, but it wasn't one that he necessarily excelled in. And then you have him and Tyler Conklin, who are far more blocking tight ends. You bring Gadsden into the fold. It all makes sense to combine with Trey Harris, Mike Williams, Ladd McConkey. So there's a lot of, I think, good things about what they could be on offense. I am very skeptic about their defense. I don't really know what's going to happen there. Now, Jesse Minter is a fantastic play designer, defensive coordinator. We saw that last year where even Patrick could give him a lot of credit for showing him a blitz look he had never seen before. So we know the creativity on the defensive side is going to be there. But it's an older defense that has some young pieces that they got last year, even the year before. Tuli Pelotu is going to slot into a starting role, it feels like now, alongside Khalil Mack, and be that starting defensive end. They drafted a guy, Jamar Caldwell, out of Oregon in the 3rd round, one of my favorite, I think, defensive tackles in this draft, to be able to come in and be like a legit run stuffer. Now, we'll see what Tier Tart can be, because he's been kind of all over the league over the last couple of years. I'm still kind of interested how the defense in the back end is going to look outside of Derwin James. You know, they bring in Dante Jackson. The Cam Hart played decently last year, so did Tariq Steele, but the collective unit seemed to really teeter off towards the end of the season, specifically in the pass defensive section. This is Joey Bosa, not there anymore, one of the lifelong Charger players, but he's with the Buffalo Bills. And I know he's been injured over the past couple of seasons, so I'm just kind of deciding what we're going to see here with the Chargers defense, one that has typically been relatively good over the past couple of years. I think that might take a step back this year from last year, but the offense is going to do far more of the heavy lifting. And this is a year that Justin Herbert might actually have to carry more of the offensive load in the Jim Harbaugh-led offense than maybe they want to, specifically because of that defense. So I think that they're going to be fighting with the Raiders and the Broncos. It should be a very interesting AFC West, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that the Chargers might have the highest upside and also maybe the lowest floor.
The variance, yeah.
Yeah, because I think the Raiders, maybe I'm wrong, but I think the Raiders are going to win 7-8 games, and I feel like that pretty confidently, but I don't think they're going to be much higher than that. Broncos, I think, are kind of the same boat, maybe 10 wins, 11 wins, but I see them having a pretty good floor because of that defense, but I don't see them having crazy upside because I just don't think the offense is good enough. But the Chargers are interesting. They have the best quarterback of the 3. I think offensively they have really good tackle play, obviously. I like their wide receiver combo of Trey Harris and Ladd McConkey. Running back room, obviously a big fan of. And then you're right, defensively, I could see him taking a big step back, but also, like, they brought in Benjamin St-Juste, the guy from Washington. He's a very big-bodied guy. He showed some flashes. Yeah, he's older at 27, but I kind of like that. You're right about Tuipulotu and Khalil Mack with Derwin James. They're an interesting defense where I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if they're going to be real bad or if they're going to be real good, but I don't see them being average. I think you're right. I feel like we're going to say, James got injured or Khalil Mack took a step back because of age, and I'd say, yeah, I believe it. Or it's like, no, those guys are still great, and all their young guys took a step forward, and I would also believe it. I think the Chargers, to me, still a team with and then also I like Mekhi Becton, by the way, bringing him in at right guard. Thought that was a nice move by the Chargers as well. But you're going to say it. Chiefs get to the double digits in the AFC West hierarchy. They get to 10.
Yeah, I think that they're going to get past 10 wins in this.
No. Sorry, Holmes. 10 straight AFC West titles.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think they get 10 wins too. That'd be a shockingly low number right there. No, do they?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think that this is the year that someone overtakes the Chiefs at the top of the AFC West. It's still Patrick Mahomes, it's still Andy Reid, it's still Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. And at the end of the day, Steve Spagnuolo tilts that scale as well. So it's still them. The collective unit is there. The lifeblood is there. We'll see how these younger, I guess, culture teams are going to start to come up and see how they can challenge. The games were tough last year. I don't expect them to be any different this year, and I don't expect the outcomes to change all that much either.
Yeah. Film analyst for RGR Football, Daniel Harms. You can follow him on the X at InHarmsWay19. Harms, always a pleasure.
Always, man. Thank you for having me, as always.
Of course, man. We'll take a break. Come back. The Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Welcome back to the Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. We don't have Lebo, so we can't play Fact or Fiction. We don't have Jason, so we can't do that either. But we have...
I do miss Jason and Lebo.
Wow, thanks.
See, there's no way you can say that you miss someone that's gone without hurting your feelings, Sterling, but that is not what that was intended to be.
Wow, everyone.
It was intended to be that
sounded like it.
We have a lot of fun, the four of us.
We do have a lot of fun.
A lot of fun today.
I've had a lot of fun today with you. Dylan?
We've tackled a lot of subjects.
We've hit a lot of subjects. Well, we haven't tackled them because of flag football. We've pulled the flag.
Well done, sir.
We're playing a game called This or That. Okay? The game called This or That. Part of this is going to get to know Dylan better. For all the listeners, we want to know more about the mysterious man behind the board that is Dylan. So it's going to be fun. All right, Dylan.
Yeah.
1970s NFL or 1980s NFL?
Ooh. Damn, that's a really good question, Sterling.
I thought all night doing this one.
I'm going to go 80s just because there was more parity. Like, the 70s was all the Steelers, and as much as I absolutely love the Pittsburgh Steelers of the 70s, I do like 80s Walsh versus Parcells versus Gibbs football. There's a lot more East versus West rivalry. You have the Ditka Bears in there as well. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the 80s. I think the 80s was just a lot more parity.
Yeah.
Than just every other year is the Steelers year.
So this is fun because that leads me into this one.
Uh-oh.
Better dynasty.
Oh. All right.
I'm not using the Patriots because I think we can put that one away.
That's tough to compare to.
Better dynasty, 70s Steelers or 90s Cowboys?
70s Steelers.
I think so, too.
I thought you were going to go Niners of the 80s, which would have been...
That would have been tough. All right, okay, 80s.
I think I'm still going to go Steelers just because of how dominant they really were. Like, they were changing rules to mitigate the Steelers. They took away the head slap. They took away the
Deacon Jones head slap. Come on.
They changed the rules of receivers as well,
which
actually benefited Lynn Swann and Stallworth, but, nerding out here.
Now I'm trying to think. So the 70s Steelers might be... Are they still ahead of the Chiefs dynasty?
Yeah.
So,
I would say so just because they have 4.
I think the Chiefs are ahead of the Cowboys, by the way, now.
Absolutely.
So I think it's probably Patriots, Steelers,
Niners.
Chiefs. Oh, you're going...
Niners still have 4.
Niners, yeah.
Chiefs are 1 win away from being able to, I would say, surpass the Steelers and Niners.
I like it.
Because it would be within 10 years, just like they did. It's a more modern league with more parity than even they had, especially the Steelers. So I would say that once they get to 4, then they're clearing away. But you could still argue. You really could.
Yeah. All right. Who should be in Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame first? Pete Rose or Barry Bonds?
That's another great question.
I thought these last night. I was downstairs in my basement.
Really good.
They were there was a storms going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was gonna go to the gym, so I couldn't go to the gym. So I just lifting these weights in my basement, just coming up with the questions for you.
Kettlebells.
Yeah, just these 20. They're 20 or 25 pound. Just little. That's all you need.
You can do a good workout with just body weight. Like, you don't need the weights. I mean, that's
don't need one.
Base Camp Fitness. Man, I am gonna go Pete Rose just because we're gonna have to wait till Barry, unfortunately, is gone, and then they'll reinstate him, and then they'll have to high horse about whether they put him in or not. So yeah, I think Pete Rose is well further along down the lines of baseball Hall of Fame.
Who should be in first in your mind?
Oh, Barry Bonds. I think it retroactively should have been Pete Rose the whole time. Then we wouldn't even have this discussion because of eras and how it all worked time frame wise. But
sure.
I think a guy with 4,000 hits has to go first. As great as Barry Bonds was, like the guy with 4,000, and it's gambling. He wasn't,
Yeah.
If we're splitting hairs, I don't think either was egregious enough to ban them forever. But if we're picking one or the other,
Pete Rose's dome didn't allegedly get bigger.
No.
Allegedly, of course. Dylan, bigger issue for the Royals offense so far, Vinny or Salvi?
I'd say Vinny just because you can get around your old, 38 now, almost
35
35-year-old catcher. who already has a ring and is more of your defensive rock than the catalyst of your offense. And in my opinion, the only thing wrong with Salvi is where he's hitting in the lineup. I don't think it really matters that he can't hit because really you never really expect a lot of offensive production from your catcher. He's more the defensive captain, the person that gets everyone in place, yada, yada, calls pitches, calls games, works with the pitchers, everything else. You really don't hitting is almost a cherry on top.
Sure.
So I'm going to go Vinny.
I think I was going Vinny, too. I think because Salvi, again, the underlying numbers, I'm thirsty, I'll take a drink. But I will say Vinny's defense has been nearly elite. I know it's first base, so take it with a grain of salt, but Vinny's first base has been really, really good. But I think you're right, because Salvador Perez, at his age, with everything right now, he shouldn't have to be your second-best hitter, which I think little unfair. He hasn't been that, by the way. Let me say that. He's not been the second-best hitter. That's been Michael Garcia. But I think Vinny, to me, has been the bigger, and this is Royals' offense, so I think Vinny, to me, has been the bigger issue overall. Still some underlying signs of them both having some positive progression. Michael Massey also might be the biggest issue, quite frankly.
Right. Yeah. There would be the answer of that is no.
Yeah, all of them. All right, Dylan, boat beer or pool beer?
Pool beer, because it seems like less work, tying up the boat.
You can still drink on the.
No, I know. But then it's not on the boat. You're on the dock on the boat. I think
you could be in the water drinking a beer.
Right. I'm saying I'm not going. I'm not untying the boat, a life jackets, all the whole 9 yards. If it's the pool, it's just me in the pool and whoever I want to be there.
All right.
Boat is like a truck. If you have a truck, then you have a friend with a truck, then you use the truck all the time. You don't get the truck. If you have a boat versus a friend with a boat,
yeah,
then you just go hang out with the friend all the time.
Yeah, you don't
have to pay for gas or insurance or the boat.
You don't want to own a boat. You want a friend with a boat. You don't want to own a truck. You want a friend with a truck.
Yep.
Shout out Jansen for your truck.
Shout out
Bubba for your boat. We call him Bubba.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
I understand.
And of course, if you go by Bubba, of course you're going to own a boat.
Of course you have a boat.
Of course you have a boat. And he's a truck. All right. Best Def Leppard song is, for those that don't know, Dylan's favorite band, he is so claimed, is Def Leppard. Not really a this or that. This is more or less still trying to get to know Dylan better.
Let It Go. Let It Go is a great song.
Okay.
Rock of Ages, too.
Rock of Ages is a great
awesome intro. So,
all right.
The story behind the intro is great as well, which they just kind of were joking around.
Yes.
And then kept that in the song, so.
Gunter, Gleben.
Yeah, what does he say?
Gunter, Gleben, Glocken, Globen.
And he's counting down.
Yeah, he's counting.
Is it German?
No, because German is fear.
If we talk about it, I know that Curtis will tell us.
Curtis!
He will know.
K-Dog.
In the break, he will know.
He's laughing right now.
He's letting us suffer.
Yeah, he's letting us just suffer. It can't be German because I know German, and that's not.
We are drowning, and Curtis threw us a cinder block here, not the life jacket.
We'll look it up later. All right, Dylan, what would you rather have happen? KU basketball makes another Final Four, or KU football makes the college football playoffs?
The latter. And I don't want to sound pompous, but I have seen the former plenty of times. So.
All right, this was tough because I wanted to say, was KU basketball wins a national championship, or KU football makes the college football playoffs?
There you go. I'm going to go national championship because of what I said about the college football playoff, and it's just we've had championship games where we've had a 40-point spread. Mm-hmm. So I would rather win a national championship than just be someone's homecoming game in a college football playoff. Which I don't want to disparage the Jayhawks like that because our football team is great. It's just it seemed like whoever was the higher seed in last year's playoff got a massive advantage playing at home and
Indiana,
also was just a better team.
Yeah, all that stuff.
So you have a much better
opportunity.
Right.
Okay. Understood. That was a good one there. Dylan, do you think you have a better chance of getting a hit in 10 at-bats in Major League Baseball or getting at least 1 yard total in 10 carries in the NFL?
I've heard the 1 yard. I just don't understand how you can't run full speed and get 1 yard. Like it's gonna be awful. You're gonna go to the hospital probably.
Yeah.
I mean, the tush push.
Oh, dude.
Can we use the tush push?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good call.
Because if we can use tush push, then definitely the yard in the NFL.
I didn't think about the tush push.
Yep.
Oh,
All right,
dude.
Tush push, I'm taking the yard in the NFL.
Your body would be destroyed
Oh, for sure.
after that.
That was not the question.
No, I know. You're you're correct. Wow, Dylan, you got me on a technicality there. Smart. All right, 2 more before we go to break. Rather step on a Lego every day for a week, but you don't know when the Lego is going to be placed there. Could be any time.
Okay.
Or take one Razor scooter to the shin. You're the same.
Lego.
Yeah.
Lego. I don't think you're breaking a bone on a Lego. You're liable to fracture something with a Lego.
You and I are about the
scooter.
same age here. We're early 30s,
Yeah.
and if you're around our age and you used to ride Razor scooters around when you were a kid, your shin is probably still scarred and marred from the Razor scooter hitting you in the shin. It felt like your life was ending. All right, final question, Dylan. Jordan or LeBron?
Break.
Adam Teicher, Daniel Harms, Alex Smith for joining us on the show today. Royals, Giants tonight. Another late game. I don't like these late games. Way too late for me. The one time I'm actually cool with the pitch clock is these late games because that way it's not until midnight before I get to close my eyes. Michael Lorenzen on the mound for the Royals. Hayden Birdsong going for the Giants. Birdsong been great this year so far in only 23 innings, but he does have a 2.3 ERA. Michael Lorenzen, 3-4, 3.76. Over under 7.5. Seems very high. Don't they know the Royals are playing? 5.5, 4.5. Still probably ripping the under. Program up next.